Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. It's 7 o'clock. It's Monday, the 26th of January. And goodness gracious me, have we got a show for you? And have we got some political machinations for you as well? A lot of people last night celebrated Burns Night. I'm calling it Burnham's Night because, of course, yesterday was the day that Andy Burnham was told, sorry, thanks but no thanks. We don't really need you as an MP. We don't really want you to apply to be an MP. We'd rather stick you in as Mayor of Manchester because, obviously, we think you're doing a great job up there and we really don't need you in Westminster. What, of course, the real subtext of that was that Keir Starmer is running scared, the old sphincter's twitching, as we said before, and he cannot get away from all the people that hate him. And he doesn't want to bring any more in who would hate him even more. Because Andy Burnham, of course, would have only become an MP for that Manchester constituency in order to dislodge Keir Starmer as Prime Minister, because that is where it's all going. The front pages this morning are absolutely full of it. Emma Wolf is here with us. Emma, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
I mean, what on earth is going on? We've got this. Labour MPs revolt over blocking of Burnham on the Times. Lame duck Starmer has only hastened his own demise. Crash and Burnham on the front of the Sun. The Telegraph, Labour revolt over Burnham. We've got Starmer triggers civil war on the I newspaper. I mean, there is literally nowhere for the Prime Minister to hide this morning, is there?
Well, you refer to Burns Night. Can I use a Scottish word,
Yes.
frit? If Starmer isn't frit, if he didn't show just how frit he is before he jets off to China to avoid the whole thing.
Oh, yeah. How do you fancy a free embassy, guys? You put it in the middle of London, doesn't matter where it goes.
Yeah.
You can have as many underground
secret chambers.
Secret chambers, torture, do what you like. Have a look at our...
Do you want to run the Wi-Fi underneath the City of London as well?
Yeah,
underneath all our banks?
Yeah, all the secret sort of security codes that we will be passing between, banks. No problem at all.
That's fine.
What an absolute nutsy.
Taking the knee to the Chinese. Well, yeah, but to get back to Crash and Burnham, which is a fantastic headline on The Sun.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. I mean, this is a gift. And Nigel Farage yesterday was saying they're going to throw everything they've got at this by-election. I mean, they must be rubbing their hands at reform. Not only are the Conservative Party further kind of, splitting and factioning off, but it really is now civil war within Labour.
It is.
I think now it's a matter of time, isn't it, for Starmer?
It really is. And I mean, I'd like to point out that there were people who were last year ridiculing me when I said, Starmer will not last the course. At the beginning of the year, they said things to me like, they've got no mechanism in the Labour Party to get rid of them. People who thought of themselves as proper political commentators say, Mike doesn't know what he's talking about, because basically nobody can dislodge a Labour Prime Minister. They're not as good at that as the Tories. Well, it looks as though now he's out, and it's only a matter of time.
He looks so weak. It's clear. I was going to say the vultures are circling, the herons are circling around Starmer. The carrion, they can sense carrion and fresh flesh and all of this. Decaying flesh, sorry. I mean, it's a matter of time because, really, they've sent Burnham back to Manchester. I loved his reaction. Andy Burnham, first of all, he was like, I respect the decision. Yeah. I'm going to go back to Manchester. The job I wanted to leave a few hours ago, I'm going to go back there and do a great job at Greater Manchester being the mayor. And then he said, P.S. I noticed the fact that the media got this story before I was even informed. I mean, bitter doesn't even
exactly
touch
right.
it.
I mean, because my initial reaction was actually Andy Burnham's probably going to be quite pleased in a way, because what probably would have happened is that he would have stood for election in the vacant seat that Andrew Gwynn's leaving up there in Manchester. He would have lost to Reform,
Egg on his
and then
face.
he wouldn't be mayor anymore either.
And you end up with nothing.
So in a way, this kind of helps him out because it means that he can look like the good guy. He can look like he wanted to do the right thing, and in fact it now looks as though Starmer has blocked it. And the thing that I also find amazing is the NEC, the National Executive Committee of the Labour Party, includes several people, including Keir Starmer, who voted against the guy challenging him. How is that fair?
I was shocked that Shabana Mahmood was on there. And then Keir Starmer is on that committee as well.
Yeah.
And there's not like 40 of them. There's, 10?
I know.
10 of them.
It's unbelievable.
One of them abstains.
Yeah.
Lucy Powell stood up for Burnham, and 8 of them voted to block him.
Yeah.
So they all look weak. I agree with you about Burnham. He sort of gets out of it in a way. He ends up, because I think he would have lost everything and ended up with nothing.
I think he would.
But he also looks a bit shifty. It's a bit like shuffling back to a relationship when you've tried to leave. It's not a good look for him either.
It really isn't. And also,
I'll
tell you what else isn't a good look. All the papers this morning are full of pictures of him with his mum. What's that all about?
Exactly, shuffling out.
Why hasn't he got a picture of him with his wife?
What? Why hasn't he got... I wonder. He's done what Hugh Edwards did, which is shuffle around with his elderly mum. I'm not sure why these men do this, roll out their old mum.
Yeah, what's that meant to do?
I know your mother, your lovely mum, died recently, but you wouldn't have gone out to the media wheeling out your mum.
Imagine if she'd still been alive when I got fired from Talk, and I suddenly decided, I'm
appeared.
going to fly to America and be pictured with my mother. As if that somehow makes everything
you
better.
a good guy or something.
Yeah, we've actually got Andy Burnham's tweets, I think, from yesterday. I don't know if we can have a look at those. Yeah, he says, here's what he says. I'm disappointed by today's... This is what I try and do his accent. I'm disappointed by today's NEC decision and concerned about its potential impact on the important elections ahead of us. To whoever is Labour's candidate and to our members in Manchester and Thameside, you will have my full support and I will be there whenever you need me.
What?
P.S. The fact that the media was informed of the NEC decision before I was tells you everything you need to know about the way the Labour Party is being run these days. You would think that over 30 years of service would count for something, but sadly not.
Emoji.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that is bitter.
And then he said this in the middle of it. Tomorrow I return with full focus to my role as Mayor of Greater Manchester, defending everything we have built in our city and region over many years. I decided to put myself forward to prevent the divisive politics of reform from damaging that. We are stronger together. But then he starts having a go at them, doesn't he? I mean, that's the funny thing. The other thing that's amazing, and we should say it's Gorton and Denton, by the way, this particular constituency that we're talking about. But a couple of things have happened over the course of the weekend, right? Which a couple of people have pointed out to me that maybe you might want to think about, because people say he's got this great level of support in Manchester. Everybody loves him.
King of the North.
Right? King of the North and all that, right? However, plenty of things happened in the midst of what was going on. For example, on the Curry Mile, which is one of the most famous streets in Manchester, where an awful lot of the Indian restaurants are, there was sort of running battles going on all weekend between Syrians and Kurds who are fighting over something that's happening back in Syria, right? But they're fighting on the streets of Britain about it. They were doing it in London last night as well, for heaven's sake. I mean, as if the police haven't got enough problems. And also, there was some guy shot in Manchester's gay village.
Absolutely shocking.
Manchester is not the absolute and utter brilliant place that
and it's
Andy
not
Burnham makes it out to be.
Not being well run by the King of the North.
No.
And actually, this was my point about this whole fiasco, this whole kind of scenario, is that this is about Starmer and Burnham both wanting top job, both wanting the keys to number 10.
Yeah.
It's not about the people of this country.
No.
And I'm actually glad for once. I think they made the right decision, because I think this man who was elected in 2024 to be the mayor for 4 years until 2028 should get on with the job.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you know how much it cost? It cost millions for the people.
They say it would cost $5 million to have a mayoral election.
To rerun the by-election after what, barely 2 years.
Yes.
So that is absolutely shocking because.
But this is one of the
it's
things
all
that
for
they're
their political ambition.
Yeah.
It's not about serving the country, because, as you say, what's actually happening in Manchester? Running battles in the streets.
Let's have a look at what was going on in the Curry Mile. I think we've got that. So that's the streets of Britain, run by Andy Burnham, and apparently there was at least one person stabbed, and there possibly could have been more. Maybe as many as 7 people stabbed over the course of the weekend, and it's just not acceptable. I mean, people complain about the fact that right wingers are always saying the streets aren't safe. Well, we don't need Syrians and Kurds fighting in the middle of British cities, do we?
Meanwhile, what was the mayor of Greater Manchester doing while that was going on? What was he doing? He was on the phone, with his political machinations about who was going to, possibly run, who was going to topple Starmer. Yeah. That's where their focus is.
Exactly.
The
and look
money
at this in
and
the Sun, right? Keir led from the front at the meeting, according to a source at the meeting. And then Housing Secretary Steve Reed says it's because of the huge inconvenience to 2 million voters. Well, what about the huge inconvenience to 4.5 million voters who aren't going to vote because they're not allowed to in the local elections coming up?
Oh no, but that's different.
Is that not a huge inconvenience?
Of course. Well,
please explain.
Is that not a shocking reversal of democracy? It's very odd, isn't it? It's very, very strange the way they've overturned that and not giving people the right to vote in May. But
right, and of course, a lot of commentators, amongst many over the weekend, are saying this is not the end of it by any means.
No, that's
Andy
the
Burnham
point.
is not going to go quietly. If anything, it's almost like that line from Star Wars, isn't it? You know, if you strike me down, I will grow bigger than you could ever possibly imagine. Starmer's days are obviously numbered, right?
This weakens him massively coming into the May local elections anyway.
Yeah.
It would have been a sort of, it would have been fun. But also, let's see what happens at the actual by-election.
Yeah.
Because today they've got to, they had to announce their candidacy by 10 p.m. yesterday or today?
I think so, yeah. I mean, my impression, and I think I've got this right about Reform, was that Reform had asked anyone who wanted to run or possibly put their names forward as a candidate had to do it by 5 o'clock yesterday.
Yeah.
I think the SEC had to make a decision, or the NEC rather, had to make a decision by yesterday, which is why they did.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they've actually named a date yet, but I'm assuming the date
it's sort
will
of
be...
late. But it's late February, early March for the by-election. But what happens in that is going to be absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
Because if Starmer loses that, then he's in trouble.
I was under the impression the by-election might not happen until the local elections in May, but I could be wrong about that.
No, it's going to be sooner. It's going to be within the next... Yep, that's why they had to get it done. It said late... They haven't got a final, but late February, early March for the Gorton and Denton.
Okay.
And I think Reform are going to go in all guns blazing there.
Well, George Galloway said he was going to run.
Yes, and George Galloway as well.
Which might be the case. The Greens are going to put somebody up. They now say it's not going to be Zach Polanski. Because at one point it was going to be Zach Polanski, George Galloway, Zia Youssef for Reform. It might still be Zia Youssef for Reform. We're not sure. Nobody really knows. But we'll find out in the next few days. Lots of messages coming in, by the way. If you want to get in touch with us, you know what to do. You should be taking part as well on the chat on super chats on the YouTube channel. Piccadilly Gardens was once beautiful, as were many places in the UK. But remember, don't look back in anger, says Lone. One from Zoe. I really like Emma. Brilliant guest. Got up early to watch you. That's nice, isn't it? Very nice.
Oh, the check's in the post, Zoe.
Very nice too. There was one as well about something which you might have noticed over my left shoulder. Yeah, there it is. It's over there. See there? So it is to be Helen and Mirren or Richard the Bird as a studio mascot. See what we've got there? We've got a lovely heron. Are we allowed to say how we got it? Are we allowed to say where it came from? Donald McLeod, who's coming in this week, he's going to be on Plank of the Week, sent it down especially from Scotland. I don't know if he flew it down, if you see what I mean. But the heron, of course, the big mascot of this place. Well, we need to make a decision, don't we, on what we call it. Heron Mirren or Richard the Bird. You know, why don't you tell us? Maybe we'll do a poll, actually. We haven't got a poll today, have we? So we should do a Heron Mirren poll. What do we call the heron, which is here now in the studio? Should it be Heron Mirren or Richard the Bird?
Or Eva Heron.
Or Eva Heron. There was another good one that we liked as well, wasn't there? But we've forgotten what they all were. But let's name it today before the end of the show. Also, by the way, some great news. Many of you have been saying for a long time the show's too short. So we've taken your advice and we've decided to lengthen it by an extra half an hour. So instead of finishing the show at 9 o'clock, the show will now run until 9:30. And we'll have an extra special guest for an after show every single day at 9 o'clock. And today's guest is Lucy Connolly, of course, the woman who was locked up for a tweet. So she'll be having plenty to say, not least about one of the other stories today, Emma, 13,000 paedophiles who have not gone to prison in the last 5 years, despite the fact that they were found guilty of being in possession of disgusting and ghastly child porn images. Isn't that shocking?
Absolutely shocking. How have we got to a state where a tweet, an ill-advised tweet, a tweet that someone, whatever you think of what Lucy Connolly said, a tweet that someone later regrets and then deletes and apologises for, is seen as more egregious than actually harming children, actually posting vile images. We know the problems. We know the problems of the internet at the moment. And Labour have been so weak on this. It's shocking, isn't it?
They really have. Only 2,910, according to a piece in The Sun today by Thomas Godfrey, of the 15,867 child sex offenders convicted since mid-2020 were immediately sent to prison. That's a lock-up rate of just 18%. So if you're a paedophile and you like collecting disgusting, ghastly images of people and their children, or people with children, you've got a pretty good chance that you won't go to prison. You've got a good four-fifths of a chance that you won't go to prison. You know, so what's that? 80% chance of not going there. Ridiculous.
Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, and also how many people were let out on the streets, dangerous, domestic abusers, paedophiles, people like that who've been let out on the streets by our wonderful Home Office.
I know. The wonderful Home Office.
It's not a safe country,
run by
is it?
Shabana Mahmood. We'll come back to her in a minute. Got some more messages for you there. Pooch, just keep putting them up and I'll keep reading them out. Is it really beyond the wit of your camera crew to have two people in one shot where both people are looking at the camera? When you say camera crew, Bernard, how many people do you think we've got working the cameras? Camera crew would suggest we've got more than one, but we haven't. What we've got is Pooch, the man who does everything. Not only does he put the heron into place over there, not only does he check that the clock is right over there, not only does he make sure that over here the Mike Graham shows the right colour, not only does he make sure that the flag is pointing in the right direction, not only does he run the ticker tape across the bottom of the page, not only does he film us, but he also supplies all the video, all the sound, all the clips. So when you say camera crew, I'm going to say to you, we don't have a camera crew, okay? We have cameras which are pointed at us. I mean, of course you can see Emma and I in the same shot if you wish to. There we are.
There we are, in the same shot. We can look wherever you would like.
We can even do that. So we can even look at each other.
Yes,
right, and
we can look at each other. We can look at the clock.
There's lots of things we can do. So, but thank you very much indeed. One from Cindy Smith. Love you, Mike. I get up at 2 a.m. to watch you from Michigan. Fantastic. Also, somebody said the heron looks more like an ostrich. But I can't remember where that one is.
I'm trying to imagine Donald McLeod coming through an airport holding that thing.
I know.
How did anybody get through an airport?
Well, maybe he came with a train.
Toting
I'm not sure.
Blue bird.
I'm not sure. How about this? Lots of you. Pooch is the man. He's done an incredible job. We love the mysterious man out of shot laughter, says Jan. Absolutely right. And Metal says he's living up to his name. We love Pooch. Also, coming up, I've got a special treat for you later on in the show when we do Plank of the Day. Ziggy. My beautiful Labrador is going to make an appearance because we've got a story which involves him. It's his birthday week as well, so we're celebrating that. Let's hear it for Pooch, says Vic. Mike, I'm afraid we are losing our country fast. David says it looks like a swan. It does not look. I mean, it's the last time we saw a blue swan.
It looks like a blue ostrich.
I mean, what's wrong with you? Morning, Mike. Great to see Emma on. I tune in every morning for my daily fix before I start work. Good vibes, says Swalker. Absolutely right. Let's talk a bit more about Shabana Mahmood. Front page of the Times today. She was in being interviewed by Laura Kunsberg yesterday on the show. Trying her best at the time not to be drawn because they hadn't made a decision yet on Andy Burnham. Yeah. And you could tell that she was feeling really uncomfortable about it because she wanted to be on Keir Starmer's side, but she didn't want to look like a complete fascist. Yeah. Right. So she was kind of like saying, "Well, it's not for me." Blah blah blah. But she was.
I'm on the committee. It's not for me to decide.
Yeah, she voted to block him.
No. She didn't vote.
Oh, really?
She doesn't vote. There was 8-1. Lucy Powell. There's 10 of them.
Then.
She resiled or whatever the word is.
So she did what Keir Starmer should have done.
Should have done.
Right.
Well, then 2 of them would. It was absolutely ridiculous.
That is mad. So the only woman who voted for Andy Burnham was Lucy Powell. Yeah.
So she was determined. You're right. Shabana Mahmood turned up. I saw her turned up at the BBC looking like Darth Vader. I wish we had a picture. She had this sort of cape on. Anyway, I don't know whether it was a cape or a cloak, but I didn't dare tweet about it in case I got arrested.
Yeah,
I mean, that's how ridiculous the world is.
It is mad, isn't it?
I didn't dare. I thought, if I said she looks like Darth Vader, she might, I don't know.
That might be in some way
It might be in some way a problem.
Misogynist. Can you be a misogynist if you're a woman?
I don't know. You probably can. If you're right wing, you can. Or if you're centre right, you can be anything. But she was determined to talk about her police reforms. Guess what? They're going to waste millions of pounds restructuring the police.
Yes.
So they're going to get rid of all the 43 thingies and then expand the constabulary.
Yeah.
So they've at the moment
43 forces are going to be reduced down to 12 or something, right?
But some are going to be expanded.
Right.
And then lots of police are going to be focusing on terrorism and online crime and not chasing up the pedos.
Right.
Paedophiles.
And then
the rest of them are going to be out on the streets.
And once they get them in front of a judge, the judge just won't put them in jail because what's the point?
What a joke.
How about this from Steve? He says, Mike, in Djibouti, Africa, working, never miss your show. Love Emma too. Is she a permanent on Mondays? Yes, she is. I hope so. Anyway, as permanent is. We love Emma. She's always been very supportive. She was our first ever newspaper reviewer when we first started the show on January the 5th. And long may it continue.
Absolutely.
We love having Emma in because she's beautiful and smart and clever. She's everything that a woman should be. Not even half an hour into the show, the moaners are off, says Wendy. Yeah, I mean, you can see over here, as I say, oh no, it's over there. We've got a heron. Which
We're learning his left and right. We're learning left and right.
Yeah, I'm trying, it's like teaching a child. But the point is this, people are already saying it looks like an ostrich, looks like a swan. What's wrong with you? Here's Claire. Morning, Mike. Let's see who the plank of the week will be. Starmer is stiff competition when anyone dares to nudge in on his territory, given how he's the world champion at this title. Well, he's also going off to China, so we should be able to get some pretty funny stuff based on that. Actually, before we go on with Shabana Mahmood, we should probably have a look at a video that was put out by Starmer over the weekend. This is even more bizarre, than most of the things that he does. And it's a TikTok video.
Yeah.
Now, there's a reason why we can't play the music on this, because there's a little funny rule that YouTube have, and it's a rapper, and I'm not quite sure who the rapper is. Here it is. It's T-Cans and Kishper. CXSPER. There's a song called Now or Never. But let's have a look. He's put this video out, right? But he's put a rap song over it. And it's supposed to be him looking cool, right? And it's like, yo, if I could do it, then why can't you? Get up and make it work. Ain't no way down sitting around. This now or never. I'm picking the first. You can't get me that. I won't make it. Knew that. I had the kiss and spurt. Burning came out on mud like Roddy. I had nobody. I came from dirt. Still can't. I'm putting the work. Painting a picture when I write lyrics. Don't call me a rap and a rap. That's what it sounds like.
You're pretty good, actually, Mike. You are pretty good at that.
Well,
I didn't know you were going to drop the whole thing like that.
Well, I didn't either, man.
Rhyme.
But listen, the thing is, right?
Wow.
The worry we've got is if we play the video with the sound on, they'll cut the channel off because the YouTube don't like it.
I'm slightly stunned into silence.
Sorry.
Wow.
But you should see the TikTok remarks. Every single person on TikTok has gone, who does this idiot think he is?
Really?
He's a complete and utter plonker.
Absolutely.
And he thinks he's down with the kids. But it's got pictures of him like hugging Vladimir Zelensky. And like walking and doing that thing where he's looking through the binoculars of the submarine. I see no ships. The bloke is a complete loser.
And who is advising him? Who is making this stuff? He shouldn't be allowed anywhere near TikTok.
Really?
Really.
He absolutely shouldn't. And he only went onto TikTok because he wasn't on X, remember? Because he was trying to shut X down.
Yeah.
And previously, we were told that TikTok was banned inside the Palace of Westminster, so you can't even look at it if you're in Parliament.
It's absolutely crazy.
It's just mad. Anyway, back to the police changes, right? Because they're now saying, apparently, this will shock you. If there's an emergency call that comes in, the police have to answer it in less than 20 minutes.
Less than 20 minutes.
Thanks, guys. Hello? Yeah, what's happening? I'm getting murdered. Right, we'll be there in half an hour.
Less than 20 minutes.
I mean, it's
19
ridiculous.
minutes. It's absolutely ridiculous. And the point is, most crimes are not followed up at all. So, I mean, it's, really, are they going to be there in 19 minutes if you're being murdered on the street?
Yeah.
But forget it.
I mean, when I had my phone stolen,
burglary, anything.
People get sick of hearing this story, but I'm going to say it again. When I had my phone stolen, there was a policeman in a van, literally across the street, when the guy took it out of my hand and roared off on his moped. I went over to see him, and I said, "He's gone that way." He said, "Yeah, I can't follow him because I can't get the van over the curb." I'm like, right, okay. Well, should I just report it to you then? No, best not to report it to me.
No, here's a number.
Best to report it to, but do it online. What's the
Do it
point of the
online,
police?
and your phone's just been stolen.
Yeah.
So, it's absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, so what is the point of a policeman in a police van?
There
if he's
is
not gonna do
no
anything?
street presence. There is no deterrent. There is no sense, is there, that there is law and order on the streets when you see a policeman? They will not get involved.
Yeah,
They can't
exactly
turn the
right.
van around.
Lord Viking says, now, Emma, it's your turn to rap.
Absolutely not. No way.
That's very funny. The other thing that they're saying they want to do is they want to create a kind of British version of the FBI.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't sound right to me, that.
It doesn't. What's it called? The police, it's something, it's another CPS, CAPS, PACS.
3 more letters that
No,
mean
it's
nothing.
absolute nonsense.
But, the FBI is kind of a cool thing. You think
I
of
know.
Elliot Ness, you think of the Untouchables,
Yeah.
you think of all these kind of characters who, burst in through doors and arrest people
I
in
know.
Wall Street, go after the mafia. You can't imagine sort of, Bobby from the West Midlands.
Who can't run. He can only run to the local McDonald's.
I'm with the British FBI. We've come to search your premises. I mean, it doesn't have quite the same ring to it, does it?
No, it really doesn't.
I mean, sorry to pick on the West Midlands police. Obviously, they wouldn't investigate anybody who was in the Muslim community either. That doesn't apply because they do what they like. That's not a problem.
Well, her point is that they're going to have digital forensic experts. They're going to be targeting professional criminals, online paedophiles, cyber investigators. They're going to disrupt criminal networks. She says, crime has evolved, but police forces haven't.
Really?
All of this, absolute nonsense. She's just big reforms. Do you know what? And we've been saying this since the very start about Shabana Mahmood.
Yes.
Is that it's all talk. Do Do you remember right at the start? And it was only a few months ago that she came in, maybe 6 months now. She came in and she said she was going to smash the gangs.
Yeah.
She was going to really, really crack down on the small boats.
Yes.
And for about 10 seconds, I thought, OK, let's see. And she's done nothing.
No.
She released a load of these TikTok nonsense videos early on. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Her walking along, very slick videos that they'd spent a lot of money on. And she has done almost diddly squat.
Well, let's not forget, also, she said over the weekend, we've got a quick super chat here from Gorilla Chops, Emma is a vibe. Top of the guest list, Mike. I presume that is a very good compliment.
A vibe, absolutely, thank you.
Is that a good thing?
Yeah.
Absolutely it is. One of the things that she also said before the weekend was that putting these migrants into the disused army camp in Crowborough was the answer to moving them out of a hotel. 5,000 people turned up at an anti-migrant march over the weekend. Yesterday, we're going to talk to Howard Cox about that shortly. Bottom line, it wasn't covered by Sky, wasn't covered by the BBC. They didn't even send anybody there.
Convenient, isn't it?
Pictures in the papers. But she's got that completely wrong. You know, people don't want these characters put into army camps in the middle of towns.
They
want them
really
put into
don't.
army camps in the middle of nowhere. That's where they want them to go.
It needs to be a deterrent. It needs to be somewhere that is not attractive to come to, not a lovely town like Crowborough. And why, Mike? Why is it so unacceptable that local residents say we don't want this in our town? We care about where we live.
Exactly.
I mean, I felt the same about the Thistle and the Clerkenwell, all the Barbican stuff.
All near where you live,
Yeah, and we've seen it at the Bell in Epping and all of that. It's so unfair that people are not allowed to say we don't want this here. It changes the nature of our local area, of our community.
Well, also they're frightened of what might happen if they've got children, if they've got wives, if they've got daughters, you know, all of that. Lots and lots of great messages coming in. One from Luce who says, Pooch, while you're making sure the cameras are directly facing Mike and Emma, getting them to make eye contact, finding fingerprints and purchasing clocks, can you do the poll for the Heron, please? We'll try and get that organised. Here's one from Tony from North Somerset. The Home Secretary is a fraud, love the show, and Emma as a guest. Long live it. And Bunty says, stop flirting with my Emma. I don't think I'm flirting with
Bunty?
you. I don't know. Obviously a secret admirer. What a pathetic Prime Minister we've got. Bad performance by the Prime Minister. Heron looks more like a blue tit, says Mark. You're obviously not an ornithologist, are you? Blue tits are an awful lot smaller and don't have very long necks. And they're not really that blue. How about this, though? We should play this because Shabana Mahmood, where is Rod Hull? Says Paul, thank you. He's up on the roof. No, sorry, it's not something I should say. Shabana Mahmood yesterday on Laura Kunsberg's show was asked about that thing where she said that her dream was to have everybody kind of under constant surveillance all the time, right? Have a look at this. Oh. That's Ed Miliband's energy policy by Andrew Neil.
Also, can I correct everybody on Twitter? Can I correct everybody who spells pooch? P-O-O-C-H, like a dog. He's not pooch like a dog. No. He's Italian, so it should be spelt P-U-C-C or P-U-C-H.
P-U-C-H, yes.
So on Twitter, don't misgender him. Don't misspell his name.
Don't get it wrong. Yeah, don't get it wrong. Okay, are we able to watch Shabana Mahmood? Let's have another go.
2 secs.
Yeah, a couple of secs, we'll do that. Who is here with me? Ziggy, the Mike Graham watchdog, says Lord Viking. Yeah, you're going to see Ziggy shortly because I've got some bad news actually on the Ziggy front. Because as a result of something that happened over the weekend, Ziggy is now involved, up to his neck in it actually, a plank of the day. We're not saying who the plank of the day is yet, but I will tell you as we go. Because
when you were saying about Zia Yusuf possibly standing, I thought you said Ziggy, and I thought you were going to put Ziggy forward as a candidate.
Absolutely not. He's got.
I think he'd probably win.
I think he probably would win, actually. Yeah. People would rather vote for a dog than George Galloway. No, that's not fair. Have a look at this. This is Shabana Mahmood.
Interesting thing. You said it was your dream that the eyes of the state can be on you at all times. Now, you were talking about the use of technology in policing, but what do you say to voters that might think that sounds a bit creepy? You know, the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, is watching you.
Well, I think that my quote should be read in context. I was talking about the fact that given that the prison system has been on the brink of collapse and this government has had to stop the collapse of our prison system, we've obviously brought in changes to sentencing, which will bring in more community sentences. And I think that technology has the potential, the next generation of tagging and other developments, to make sure that actually if somebody is serving a sentence outside outside of prison, the eyes of the state can still be on that person, just as they are on that person when they are in prison. So I think that the quality of punishment, which is necessary when people break our laws, they should rightly be punished. I think it can be just as strong if delivered in the community with technology being used as it is in prison. So I was making a bigger case about how technology, I think, does have the power to unlock effective punishment, whether that's in a prison or outside of a prison.
So you weren't trying to freak people out.
But in addition, I do think that AI and other technology like live facial recognition can transform the way that policing operates.
See, the trouble with the sort of the justice people of today, and I include, you know, some lawyers, some judges, and certainly politicians like Shabana Mahmood, they think that it's better to put people, you know, sort of under house arrest than it is to put them in prison. It isn't. You know, I know that they've all been listening to, you know, people like the reform for penal, whatever it is, penal reform crowd. You know, oh, it doesn't work for putting people in prison.
Good Law Project.
They just come out and, the Howard League for Penal Reform is what I'm thinking of. You know, they think that actually, oh, there's no point putting them in prison. Just keep them under surveillance in the community. No. You know, if you're a paedophile, you go to jail. You need to be out of the way. You need to be unable to harm children. It's as simple as that.
But I think the wider problem here is that for decades now, these people have not been affected by it. They don't live amongst the kind of, you know, milieu, the local areas that are affected by this at all.
No, exactly.
It doesn't touch their lives. They don't notice if, you know, loads and loads and loads of foreigners move into their local communities. They're not... You know, their children aren't on the local buses going to school.
No, I know.
They're being driven around. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't change their lives in any way.
It's shocking, isn't it? Some great tweets coming in and messages as well. This one from Gaz, who said, you should have named the bird Gil Scott. I see what you did there, Gaz. Very well done. Good knowledge of the music industry. The blue heron has more life and personality than Starmer. Well, that would not be hard. You know, that plant behind me's got more... oh, it's that way, isn't it? No, it's not that way. It's that way. There it is. That plant has got more personality than Starmer. Can Ziggy play guitar, Neil? Yes, of course. He can. Thank you. Don't get me singing again. Another super chat from Simon. Thank you very much indeed. One here from Junga. He says, do it online. Exactly what public bodies say, and also hide the fact that they're not really interested in talking to you at all. Canastria says, how about Charlize Heron? That's good.
That's good.
That's really good. I like
good.
that. We haven't had that one before. Thank you very much indeed. Keep those coming in. Super chat again from Mr. Woodward. Mike, can you cover the blockades of supermarket distribution centres for Lidl, Tesco, etc. by farmers since the beginning of the year? I've seen some of them. I didn't know they were still going on, but we'll certainly check it out. What I can tell you is a couple of weeks ago, unannounced, I was driving around. I was actually dropping my son off at his workshop, his workplace, and suddenly coming down Whitehall were about 5 massive tractors. So they're still occasionally coming into town, and they don't get the coverage. And like we said, when you look at the sort of what you might call mainstream broadcasters, the BBC, Sky, and all the rest of it, they didn't cover the protest yesterday in Crowborough. They don't cover a lot of the protests that go on in this country. They just willfully ignore it.
Exactly.
Which is extraordinary, isn't it?
Really is.
Let's talk about China quickly, because we're running late already. We've got Keir Starmer going over there later this week, I think. Priti Patel's had a go at him about that. And also on the front page of the Times, China's most senior general has been purged after accusations that he leaked information about its nuclear weapons program in the US. Now, purged, I presume, means killed off, does it?
Yeah, well, I think so.
Is Keir Starmer going to go there and complain about human rights, do you think?
Keir Starmer, what is he doing going over to China? Yeah, you know, obviously they're a very, very strong economic force, and we, you know, have plenty of trade with them. Priti Patel saying he's going to China on his knees. Well, we've heard about Starmer on his knees quite a few times. Priti Patel, he's going to China on his knees rather than in a position of strength. And she's talking about this endless, and we've talked about the embassy many times, but this endless kowtowing to China.
Yeah.
What's his problem? Why does he do this?
Well, because he seems to have some kind of obsession with helping China to become, you know, the kind of the master, if you like, of the UK.
Of the UK? Because, well, no wonder Trump is fed up with us. Oh, and he's taking your favourite person as well, Rachel Reeves. Guess what? The Chancellor and the Prime Minister should be here dealing with the situation in this country.
Richard III. I think that's the third time she's gone to China, isn't it? She loves it over there. I mean, all I can hope for is that he ruins the Chinese economy in the same way that he's ruined our own. Ziggy for Prime Minister, says Lord Viking. But that's it. I mean, you know, the whole situation regarding this government it's on borrowed time.
Yeah.
Everybody knows it. Everybody can see that it's failing.
Yes.
Everybody can see that even his own party now is revolting against Keir Starmer. And I mean, I know I've been saying this for quite a long time. I've been saying he can't last. He surely can't last beyond May, and maybe even in the by-election. If they lose the by-election, as you say, in the next few weeks.
Will that be enough? I don't think it'll be enough. I think May, if it's a real bloodbath, and if then Streeting and Rayner and again resurgent Andy Burnham rise up and do something drastic, we might get he might be unseated.
Yeah.
But I don't know how we're going to get this man out. It reminds me of my late dad, who used to say, "For God's sake, man, just go." When there were people being really boring at a party, and he just wanted them to leave.
Just go.
And it's that feeling that's exactly the same with
The party's
Starmer.
definitely over. I can't believe it. Super chat from Penny for your thoughts. Big up, Emma, the best guest. You get a lot of praise this morning. Very
Wow.
nice. Must be a
Thank you,
black and
Penny.
white dress.
Yeah, well, this is the jailbird dress. Whenever I wear it, I think I sort of... Didn't people used to wear black and white stripes in prison?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
But they were sort of vertical rather than...
Oh, vertical,
yeah,
okay.
I think
Well, better
so.
than an orange jumpsuit. I won't wear an orange
That's true.
jumpsuit.
Okay, we don't have orange jumpsuits here. That's
No.
for people in Guantanamo Bay. Emma, there's only one final story which is on the front page, and the only reason I do this is because I used to do a kind of rat impression whenever I was on talking about rats, because there's a picture on the front page of the Telegraph. A potential rescue bid for the bust broadband provider G Network has been ruled out because there are fears that rats have chewed through all of its fibre optic cables. So I'm just going to have to do that thing that I used to do when you're a rat. Because you see a great big rat, and it's not very nice. Apparently, basically, the administrators have been called in, and they found out that all the broadband connections have gone because the rats have eaten them all.
The absolute state of this country, that's all I can say. Look what Labour have done in about a year and a half. See what I did there?
Yeah.
I blamed the rats on Labour.
Yeah.
But I mean,
they're eating the cats.
I bet you there'll be super fast broadband and no rats chewing through it for the super embassy.
Yeah.
In the centre of London.
Oh no.
In the centre of the
they'll
city.
probably have super duper Chinese rat poison.
Absolutely.
You know, which means that nobody can get anywhere near it. Nasty.
Mega rats.
Mega rats, absolutely right. Superb. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, mate.
Great to see you. Emma Wolf there with all the news that you need to know about from the papers this morning. We've got loads more. And as I said to you, big day today. We're expanding the show. It's 7:36. I think that's the first time check I've done. Sorry about that. We've got so much to tell you about, and we've got so much to do, because today the show doesn't end at 9 o'clock. It goes all the way to 9:30. And from now on, the show will go from 7 to 9:30. So it's a massive thing. And today's special guest in the after show, which comes after 9 o'clock, is, of course, Lucy Connolly. As we mentioned, we're going to be talking to Howard Cox coming up in a moment. He was down at that a protest down in Crowborough. We'll talk to him about how that all went. 5,000 people there. BBC didn't bother covering it, and neither did Sky. How surprising. First, though, it's time for Plank of the Day.
It's Plank of the Day time.
And Plank of the Day time today. There goes Emma. You see everything on this show. There's no need to apologise. You know, what we see is what we get. You can see everything behind the scenes. The camera crew might even come in and have a word in a minute. Such as they are. But no, listen, I've got something to tell you. But the best way for me, I think, to describe what's going on is for you to have a look at this, because I had to have a long and strong word with my pet dog Ziggy, my Labrador, that many of you know. Have a look at this. Ziggy, I know it's a big week for you this week, because it's your birthday week. You're going to be 12, aren't you? And we were going to have a big party in the woods with all your friends, like we always do. But this year, I've got some bad news, Ziggy, because it looks as though they've decided to put a tax on the woods, and the nasty people in the government don't want you to have a good birthday. They don't want you to see your friends in the woods, because they've decided to start charging people to park at the woods. So they've now put a tax on the air in the woods. They've put a tax on dogs going to the woods. They've put a tax on you going to the woods. So we're going to have to find something else to do on your birthday, and I'm afraid it's the fault of the Forestry Commission, which is a government organisation who are trying to stop you from having fun on your 12th birthday. But don't worry, we're going to find something else nice to do, but we won't be able to go to your favourite woods anymore. I'm so sorry, Ziggy. Ziggy was very perturbed when he heard that. Basically, what's happened, right, is the place where he used to go every single day for a walk in the woods near where we live has now been turned into a paying car park, right? So it used to be free to park your car there. They've now inserted a load of bollards. They've inserted some, what do you call it, license plate recognition, number plate recognition cameras, and you have to pay to park. People used to take their horse boxes there and get horses out and let them. It's a huge, massive wood, right? There's loads and loads of, I think hundreds and hundreds of acres of wood. Horse owners have now been told they can't any longer unload their horses there, so they're not allowed to go into the woods. Basically, if you want to walk your dog, you have to pay to park there under pain of £100 fine. And this has all been organised by something called Forestry England. Now, Forestry England is the sort of arm of... My dog is watching Ziggy on TV, says Rachel. Great. The Forestry England is an arm of the Forestry Commission. And the Forestry Commission basically is a government organisation which is millions and millions and millions of pounds every single year. By the way, I did some research on this. It turns out that in terms of the way that they spend money, staff costs have doubled in the Forestry Commission over the last 5 years, from 26 million to 56.4 million quid, right? So in the past 5 years, they have more than doubled the number of people who work for them. They've more than doubled the amount of money they pay to have these people. Other operating expenditure is largely made up of woodland creation grants and direct funding to Forestry England, right? So Forestry England gets, over the past 4 or 5 years, a threefold increase to £151 million, right? Reflecting the improving level of woodland creation across England. Well, if they're giving the Forestry England £151 million, why do they have to charge you to park, to walk your dog? Why do they have to charge you to park somewhere which has always been free? Who's getting that money, and how much did it cost to put all the technology in to try and catch people out who don't pay, right? It's absolutely ridiculous. There's also something called the Woodland Trust, which is a charity, which is also in receipt of loads and loads of money from these people. It's absolutely shocking, absolutely shocking. So for me, today, because they've made it impossible for my Labrador to go for a walk in the woods without paying for the privilege of the air, of the ground, and just the ability to go into the countryside, I'm going to make the Forestry Commission my plank of the day.
Hello, it's plank of the day time.
And imagine doing it in the week that Ziggy celebrates his 12th birthday. Julie says, how about a crowd fund for Ziggy? So he can pay to park. Well, no, because we're taking the view, no, we're not giving them the money. Why would you give them money for something that's meant to be free? You know? And in this case, it's actually not the local council. It's the Forestry Commission via the Forestry England organisation, via the Woodland Trust. Absolutely shocking. Let's talk to Mark Littlewood, who is one of the great economists of the world, a man that understands the way the world works. Mark, you'll be as shocked as I am to see that poor old Ziggy is now the victim of this overburdened taxing government.
Yes, I am, Mike. It's pretty extraordinary stuff, isn't it? You have to pay in taxes and then pay again in the open market. I mean, you know, if the Forestry Commission didn't exist or it wasn't being given grants, well, then you might have a point. Those who use the woods, those who use the car park have to pay. But it's like everything else in the world. You feel you're paying twice to get a very poor service. Basically.
Well, exactly right. And I was actually shocked when I looked up what the budget was of the Forestry Commission and the operating income of the Forestry Commission, and the fact that they don't seem to have any kind of, safeguarding in terms of who's watching over the budget. Because their staff costs have doubled in the past 5 years, and the number of grants that they've given to Forestry England have tripled in the last 5 years. So they're obviously not short of a few bob. You know, I thought we were supposed to be cutting back on the civil service. You know, running a wood or running some woodlands, I can't believe costs as much money as they're saying it does.
Yeah, Mike, it's like everything else, really, isn't it? As Ronnie Reagan was fond of saying about virtually every government project, somewhere there must be some overhead.
Yeah.
The budget goes up and up and up and up and up, but it's not obvious. I mean, are our forests 2 or 3 times better than they were 10 years ago? I think not.
No, if anything,
right?
they're probably worse.
Anyway,
no, they're probably worse. No question at all. let's talk about the big story on the front pages this morning. It's all about Labour. It's all about the Burnham debacle. I said initially when it happened that Andy Burnham's probably slightly relieved that he doesn't have to resign from being the Mayor of Manchester, a job that he claims to want to do for the good of the good people of Manchester. He doesn't have to risk losing a by-election, which could have happened, which would have meant he wouldn't either have been an MP or the Mayor. But he's obviously turned on Keir Starmer because he put out a statement, did he not, yesterday, bemoaning the way that they had actually released the news and bemoaning the fact that he's been blocked from what is effectively his democratic right.
Yeah, what's really odd about this, Mike, is not so much that they've blocked him, which you might say is an act of cowardice, but I mean, the complete lack of courtesy about it. If the Prime Minister was going to decide with the overwhelming majority of the Labour ruling committee, the NEC as they call it, that Andy Burnham was not going to be allowed to go forward, you would have thought that Keir Starmer would have the guts and the courtesy to phone Andy Burnham himself, wouldn't he?
Right.
I mean, that you'd sort of say, right, we've had a look at this. I'm going to explain to you our decision. Sorry, you're going to be disappointed. By the way, we'll be telling the media in the next 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. They didn't even do that. So it was given to the media before it was given to Burnham. Maybe he is relieved. But if you're looking at it from the point of view of the Labour Party, as you know, Mike, I am a betting man, so I always look at the bookies' odds. Well, when Burnham's name was in the frame, the bookmakers gave the Labour Party about a 70% chance of winning this seat, that they'd win it about 7 times in 10. They now say it's about a 1 in 3 chance without Burnham being the candidate. So Labour has probably cut off its nose to spite its face, right? They've managed to more than halve their chances of winning that seat just by the decision the National Executive Committee has made. So
Yes.
It's a right mess, and I can't see how it really helps Keir Starmer or the Labour Party a great deal. They were between a rock and a hard place, because you've rightly been saying all morning and running across your ticker tape at the bottom of the screen, Mike, Starmer's already on borrowed time, but he's probably can't borrow much more.
I don't think he can, and it's very clear, isn't it, that despite what the choices were, it was a sort of Hobson's choice for him, wasn't it? Because it was a devil in a deep blue sea. If he blocked Burnham, he was going to get a shellacking, and if he allowed him to run and he won, it would create a real problem in Westminster. But I think Andy Burnham's tweet last night is kind of key to what happens next, because when he said, P.S., the fact that the media was informed of the NEC decision before I was tells you everything you need to know about the way the Labour Party is being run these days. You would think that over 30 years of service would count for something, but sadly not. Because at the end of the day, they've now made an enemy of Andy Burnham, who wasn't an enemy before. You know, he was going to be quite happy to come into the fold. He'd made a statement, and we know, obviously, that it was probably slightly disingenuous, but he made a statement saying, listen, I'm very happy to come and work with the team. I want to be somebody who helps Keir Starmer remain in office and win the next election and all of that. You know, instead of which they've now created a sort of a rump of the Labour Party who hate Starmer even more.
Yes, I mean, it's hard to imagine that was possible, isn't it, Mike? But they seem to have pulled off that trick. I wondered for a while whether the trick they'd try and pull off was to allow Andy Burnham to become the candidate, but then contrive to make sure that he didn't win the seat for Labour, you know, deprive him of campaign funds or some such like. So he narrowly loses the seat, and they can then pin it all on him. I mean, Andy Burnham will be on the warpath against Keir Starmer now. He has been really for some time, but I think he's likely to be more explicit about it. I mean, the problem from his particular personal ambition point of view is that if there is a leadership election now in the next few weeks or the few months, Andy Burnham's name can't conceivably be on the ticket because he won't be an MP. And presumably if he can't run in this by-election, the logic of the Labour Party ruling would be he can't run in any by-election. So he probably can't get in until the general election, at which point they might not win very many seats anyway. The extraordinary thing, though, did you notice this, Mike, about the Labour Party's statement about this? They sort of said, oh, well, he's the Metro Mayor and we want that to, you know, sort of carry on, and we're not sure it's appropriate for him to stand down halfway through his term. But then they just used partisan excuses. They basically said, and we're very worried if he did stand down as Manchester Mayor, that although we would be confident of taking the seat, we might lose it to Reform. So he's been blocked just because of a secondary electoral decision. And then they go into all this waffle, Mike, about And we don't want to inconvenience people.
Oh, I
It would be
know.
a great inconvenience for the people of Manchester, and it would cost 4 million quid or something. We should be spending that on the cost of living crisis. Well, the logic of that is that we shouldn't hold the next general election. That costs 150 million
Right.
quid and will inconvenience many tens of millions of people. So why don't
Right.
we spend that money on the cost of living crisis as well? Absolutely extraordinary, implausible justification
I
for their
know.
decision.
Well, maybe they're hoping that it might set a precedent, of course, so that they can actually say, you know, having thought about not putting on the Manchester mayoral election because it's going to cost 4 million quid or whatever it is, maybe we shouldn't have any more elections at all. Certainly, might as well we've already cancelled, you know, elections for 4.5 million people in May. Might as well just cancel them for everyone. And then, you know what? In 2029, let's not bother having a general election either, because obviously people have voted us in, and we'll just continue to rule the country. I mean, you could imagine them actually saying that, because I've got a quote here from Steve Reed, who's now the Housing Secretary, about that inconvenience to 2 million voters. They don't seem to think that the inconvenience to 4.5 million voters who aren't going to be allowed to vote in May is an issue at all.
Yeah, quite. I mean, it's amazing what sort of excuses they're coming up with, right? I mean, okay, this by-election will happen, but I'm not sure they've allowed it to go forward in the way that the good voters of Gorton and Denton would have wanted.
Right.
I don't know, how about this for an excuse, Mike, that they say, unfortunately, we've spent so much money on the Forestry Commission recently that we haven't got enough money left to run any elections, you know. But the good news for you guys is our woodland is going to improve over the coming months. It just means there's not enough money to go around to print ballot papers.
Yes. Well, maybe
they're only 2 steps away from making that sort of argument.
Yeah, well, it may be that Rachel Reeves will soon be pictured striding, you know, boldly through a forest, saying, you know, we've managed to find some growth. You know, over here, look, there's a tree that was smaller than that last year. Now it's grown. You know, thereby proving that we've managed to actually make some growth in the economy, because God knows they're still suffering massively on that front. Got a bit of super chat for you here from Mike Parker, who says, morning, Mike. Another great start to a Monday, listening to you and your guests. Well, Mark Littlewood, of course, also another guest that's been with us since the very beginning. Absolutely brilliant. A pair character sliding on the floor on his knees saying goal. I don't understand that from Simon. What's a pair character? Don't know. Anyway, well, let's talk about Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves going to China, because, of course, we've heard all about the embassy that's going to be built in London, which nobody wants apart from the Chinese and Keir Starmer. Why the hell is Starmer really going to China, says Super Chatter LTL. It's a good question. Mark, can you answer it? Why the hell is he going to China?
Well, yes. I mean, let me try and give the innocent explanation first. They would say, wouldn't they, Mike, that, you know, we need to have good relations with China. It's is it now overtaken the USA as the largest economy in the world? It's where all the action is. You know, even if we don't trust them totally, we've got to trade with them and have good diplomatic relations with them and all of the rest. And of course, you want to have good relations even with countries that you're somewhat suspicious of. But here's the real problem, right? If you look at decision after decision after decision, they are at best wholly naive about China's motives. I mean, you've mentioned the super embassy, Mike, but look at their total determination to pay money to give away the Chagos Islands to Mauritius.
Yeah.
You know, that seems to be a very high top priority for them. Well, that would greatly increase China's influence in that region. You're right, you're not directly handing over the islands to Beijing, but you're handing them over to a Beijing sympathetic government. And then look at all of the hackles and concerns about the Greenland issue. So they want to move heaven and earth to scream about the sort of influence that Donald Trump might have over Greenland, and they might even be right on some of those concerns. But it's American influence really seems to trouble them, but Chinese influence not so much. And this super embassy, I mean, it's extraordinary. I think it's even MI5 have said that, you know, they can't be completely certain that it won't be used for nefarious purposes. There's sort of 100 underground rooms in a very, very sensitive area of the UK. And we know that Chinese infiltration in the UK is huge, you know, at university level. I mean, it's a bit like the old Cold War of, you know, who's really working for the other side. And rather than at least being skeptical about that, Reeves and Starmer seem to be fully embracing it. I mean, if this is their strategy for growth, what an unimaginative and potentially in the long term, incredibly risky one.
Yes.
We've got to deal with China, but you can't embrace them as if they're allies.
No, exactly right. I mean, and I don't know if you were watching last week, but we spoke a lot about a conversation that was had in Davos between Rachel Reeves and somebody from the American Department of Commerce. He was almost like teaching her, a net zero 101. And he was saying, the thing about Europe and its obsession with net zero is that you're leaving yourself open to being completely and utterly dependent upon China, because what you're doing is you're doing away with all of the fossil fuels that you have at your disposal. You're not going to use that as an energy source at all. Instead, you're going to go to an all-electric economy, but you don't make any batteries. And basically, it means you have to buy in all of your power from China.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, I hope, don't you think we're getting there, Mike, that the net zero milliband obsession is beginning to run out of road? I hope so, because the Chinese will be laughing at us, basically. If you're determined to inflict unilateral economic disarmament, which is essentially what net zero amounts to, the Chinese will be more than happy to help us with this, not just by saying, well, you're going to need to get the batteries from us if you move to electrics, but they will build as many damn stupid windmills as we're willing to buy.
Yes.
They won't have any qualms about that whatsoever. So, yeah, if we're engaged in an act of supreme national self-harm, and there's no doubt that the carbon net zero by 2050 target is exactly that, expect the Chinese Communist Party to be laughing out of both sides of their mouth whilst they take our money and help us on that mad journey. So Rachel Reeves was deservedly schooled. Look, the Americans have got this right again. They are going for traditional energy sources, and the benefit to them is colossal. In the United States of America, energy prices are about a quarter of what they are in the UK. Well, what a boost that is to the American economy. And how goddamn hard is it for a British business that's energy reliant to begin to compete with the Americans?
Well, exactly right. And I mean, it's no wonder that our electricity is the most expensive in the world. Lord Viking says Starmer's going to China to buy wind turbines because he's full of hot air. Well, that could well be. A good one here's from Els Bells, who says the trouble with the Forestry Commission, Mike, is they can't see the wood for the trees. Very good. Also, the final ignominy, I suppose, Mark, for China and Britain would be if China ends up buying one of our Premier League football teams. It's about the only thing they haven't sort of bought their way into, isn't it?
I think they even started to buy their way into that not so long ago. I mean, my own football club, Southampton, had a Chinese owner for a while, and you'd like to think the best of him. But when I was asking around about who was this guy and how close he was to the government, one of my fellow Southampton fans says, Mark, those chants of Red Army when Southampton fans are on the terraces might really be true, not just about the colour shirts of Southampton.
Yeah.
So and then they really poured into football for a while and tried to set up the Chinese Super League. But then I think they got a bit bored of it, realised they couldn't kind of compete with the money of the Saudis. But yeah, maybe that is just the last frontier they haven't quite cracked yet, Mike. So look, I mean, I think we should engage with them. There's not even a Cold War between China. There's a sort of diplomatic standoff, but we have been naive beyond belief. So you can trade, you can have diplomatic relations, but the idea that you bend your policy to suit those diplomatic needs is extraordinary. And the suggestion is, isn't it? I mean, we'll never be able to prove it, but Starmer wanted this reckless, dangerous Chinese super embassy approved before he went to Beijing.
Yes.
So he could, grease up to him and say, look, I've done this for you. Well, you shouldn't be making top security decisions on the basis of smoothing over a quick visit to go and meet the Chinese, over in Beijing.
No, exactly right. And I was saying earlier to Emma Wolf, who was on the front page of the Times today, China's most senior general has been purged after accusations that he leaked information about its nuclear weapons program to the US. Now, the word is purged. They talk about somebody being removed. I presume what they mean is done away with, or, quotes, never to be seen again. The best we can hope for that he's been sent to some work camp. The worst is probably that he's just been knocked off and we'll never see him again.
Well, maybe they should consider him as the Labour candidate in the Gorton and Denton by-election, Mike.
I was going to say, is there any chance, do you think, that Keir Starmer might raise the human rights issue with the Chinese leadership?
Well, I mean, again, they don't seem to do a great deal about this, do they? There's an awful lot of performative art, huffing and puffing. Oh, yes, but never is it used as leverage. I mean, the Chinese human rights record is appalling. I mean, this on the face of it sounds like a classic overriding of somebody's basic rights to suit the communist regime. That happens all the time. But their treatment of the Uyghurs, I mean, this is a genocide that's effectively going on, and hardly anybody in the UK has raised an eyebrow about it. So, but can you imagine Keir Starmer going over to Beijing and having some really stiff words, Mike? They'd just laugh at him, wouldn't they?
Well, of course they would. I mean, he's not capable of looking in any way prime ministerial. The last thing he is in any way I don't know, magisterial. And when you see him voting against the admission of somebody who wants to take him on, and they're talking in the Sun this morning of this meeting yesterday, this NEC meeting, which he apparently led from the front. I mean, he shouldn't actually be involved in the voting, surely, at all, should he? But here he is, trying to make out. Somebody said to me yesterday, Kemi Badenoch looked like a strong leader when she sacked Robert Jenrick the other day, when she discovered that he was about to defect to Reform. But he somehow has managed to come out of this looking weak and looking frightened and looking like he's running scared. He does not at all look like a leader, does he?
No, that's right. I mean, there are obviously differences between the Jenrick and the Burnham situation. But I think one thing that Kemi Badenoch did right, whatever you think about Robert Jenrick going to Reform, is that she got ahead of the game, immediately sat down wherever she was and took to the internet to explain her decision directly. She said, I have understood the following facts. I have therefore acted in the following way. And she put that out there for all to see and all broadcasting units to use. Keir Starmer has not said anything public about this. Why didn't he sit down and say, look, I want to talk you through my reasoning about the Andy Burnham decision? Instead, he's left it to people like Steve Reed, the local government cabinet secretary, and all of the rest of it, to go out and blabber on about how they don't want to inconvenience the people of Manchester, and it'll all be a bit too complicated. That's cowardice, not leadership. So even if you think even if the people look at a leader of any political party and think that they've made a poor decision, a wrong decision, I think they still appreciate it being explained. All that happened to Keir Starmer was he went to the meeting, didn't really say anything about it, then slunk off to Arsenal to watch them lose 3-2 to Man United. So he had a pretty bad day of it all round, Mike.
He is the quintessential Jonah figure, isn't he? You see him looming towards the Emirates Stadium. They must be going, oh, Christ, can we not keep him away? Mark, great to talk to you, as ever. Mark Littlewood there with his take on the news this morning that it's civil war inside the Labour Party. We'll hear a lot more coming up in the next hour. Howard Cox will join us. He was at the Crowborough demo yesterday against the migrant hotel, not the migrant hotel, the migrant camp, which has been set up there under cover of darkness. We've got lots and lots of your messages to do. Kev Peebles says this on the super chat. Mike, I think George Galloway threatening to stand if Andy Burnham did contributed heavily to them blocking Burnham. I think that may be right. This one from Andrew says, press the like button and Ziggy can have more treats. Woof. Yeah, absolutely right. Ziggy is so freaking cute, says Lord Viking. He really is. Poor Ziggy looks so upset, bless him, says Linda. Well, of course he's upset. He can't go to his favourite place in the world. He's been going there for 12 years. He's going to be 12 this week, and he can't go and have a party where he used to go and meet all of his doggy friends and run around and hang out and sniff away and have a wonderful time. Now, the Forestry Commission, which has got a budget of hundreds of millions of pounds, has decided to start charging for parking, charging for Labradors. It's a Labrador tax. It's a dog tax. It's disgusting. It's revolting. And it's typical of this government, I'm sorry to say. Coming up in the next hour, Frank Furedi is going to join us. You know what we haven't done? And it's my fault because I forgot to do it. We haven't had the news with Edward Hughes. We should get it now.
Good morning. Here is the news for today, Monday, 26th of January. I'm Edward Hughes. Labour is facing internal turmoil after Sir Keir Starmer's team blocked Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham from standing in a key by-election, leaving Burnham disappointed, and critics calling it a stitch-up that could fuel leadership tensions. The Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood is pushing for tougher policing reforms, including more street patrols, faster 999 responses, and scrapping non-crime hate incidents to free up officers. The NHS is rolling out an improved, more accurate bowel cancer screening test in England, which experts say could save hundreds of lives by catching cases earlier. Thousands of children are enduring catastrophic waits over a year for vital community NHS care, with 250,000 waiting youngsters affected. Police in England and Wales will face new strict mandatory emergency response time targets to improve performance. The UK is joining 9 other nations in a major North Sea project to build a 100 gigawatts offshore wind power grid, boosting clean energy capacity. And cleanup continues after a devastating storm battered parts of southwest England, damaging seawalls, piers and homes in Devon and Cornwall. That's the main UK picture this morning. Political drama, health service moves and weather recovery dominating. That's your news, latest Tigers.
And that, of course, is the news with Edward Hughes, who's strangely kind of normal sounding this morning. He sounds as though he must have had a bit of a quieter weekend than he had last weekend, when he jetted off down to some southern climes to get some sun. I'll tell you what, if you haven't seen the pictures coming from America, I've got a couple that came in last night from my sister's place in Connecticut. The snowstorm, absolutely extraordinary stuff. There's a couple of feet of snow that's landed in New York. Up a bit further north where she is, it's going up to 2 to 3 feet of snow. And, of course, it hasn't done anything to stop people from going about their daily business. They were told not to go out right in the middle of the blizzard, but apart from that, it was in fact business as usual for most people, apart from some of the southern states where they're not quite as well used to it. So if you're flying over to the US, you might want to check how the flights are going, because it has been, I think, one of the biggest snowstorms for years and years and years and years. Let's have a run through what's going on the newspapers, of course, this morning. Lots of you have got great things to say, great comments coming through. The reason our energy is sky high is because of Nord Stream. It was blown up by who, I wonder, says Geordie. I might grow some concrete boots for Miguel, says Rumpel. You may well do. Tony Swift says the Chinese super embassy was a bad move on Starmer's part. This will not bode well for the UK. And Swiss Tony says, Herr Starmer has the gravitas of a fart in a lift. Yeah. If the Chinese get into English football, there'll be a lot of red cards, says Lord Viking. Yes, thank you very much indeed. So the papers this morning very much dominated, of course, by the Andy Burnham situation. Broke yesterday. The Labour Party's National Executive Committee decided in their wisdom that Andy Burnham was far too dangerous a man to be brought anywhere near Westminster. I mean, the funny thing about Andy Burnham is that he isn't actually a brilliant politician. People say that he has this incredible support in Manchester, that he won every single ward in the local election when he became mayor of Manchester, and that people absolutely vote for him like they vote for Kim Jong-un, and he has that kind of level of support. Certainly he is the only Labour politician who has any kind of positive approval rating. Nevertheless, the papers this morning are full of it. Lame duck Starmer hastens his own demise is the front page of the Daily Mail. Labour MPs revolt over Burnham blocking, says the front page of the Times. Crash and Burnham Andy, which is good. On the Sun, Kia crisis over MP ban. Labour revolt over Burnham stitch-up is what it says in the Telegraph. And Starmer triggers civil war is the front page of the I newspaper. And quite frankly, I'm not surprised that all of this is going on, because, as you know, Keir Starmer is a member of the Labour NEC. He's part of the executive committee, as is Shabana Mahmood. She's the chair of it, right? So there's 10 people altogether. 8 people voted against Andy Burnham being able to stand as an MP in the constituency, of course, in Manchester. Basically, the only one person who voted to make him allowed to do it was Lucy Powell. So what you have now is a government that have told us they're not going to hold elections for 4.5 million people in the local elections in May. We've got a government that says that one of their own members cannot stand as an MP because they think it might be too expensive, right? They're also now saying that they're going to turn the Manchester list into an all-female list. Somebody asked the question if that meant that the what's his face was going to stand. You know, the bloke that dresses up as a woman, whose name I keep forgetting. We'll come to him. Anyway, the bottom line is that this is clearly now a government that stops democracy from actually happening. They're not interested in democracy. They don't want you to vote in elections. They'd rather you didn't. And if you're not going to vote for them, they're going to call you all sorts of nasty names. And that's another thing we're going to pick up on, actually, in this hour. Priti Patel yesterday was interviewed on a couple of different channels, and she referred to reform as National Socialists. Now, everybody knows what that is. Everybody knows that she's trying to make out that they're so right-wing that they are, in fact, as bad as that certain party that used to exist in the 1930s in Germany. Which is shocking, isn't it? A really terrible thing to say. A couple of other interesting stories to tell you about, though. And one is on the front page of the Telegraph, and we're going to talk to Frank Frady about this coming up. 700,000 graduates claim jobless benefits. Now, as if that wasn't bad enough news, it's worse news than that. This is analysis of official data by the Centre for Social Justice. It showed that 707,000 people with a university degree at the end of last year are out of work and claiming one or more benefits. That's up 46% compared with pre-lockdown levels in 2019 and has been driven by a doubling in the number of graduates who claim they cannot work because of a health condition. Right? The figures show the number of degree holders who are not working for health reasons climbed from 117,000 in 2019 to 240,000 in 2025, which is an increase of more than 100%. It means 1 in 3 graduates now cites a health reason for not working. Now, basically, the think tank who produced these figures, the Centre for Social Justice, says that basically many numbers of graduates have obtained degrees that fail to match with the skills required from employers. Think tank questioned the value of so-called Mickey Mouse degrees that it warned were simultaneously saddling students with debt and failing to improve their earnings potential. Well, there's no question, is there, that if you have got a teenage son or daughter who says to you, do you know what, I'm thinking I might want to go to university. There's a lot of more parents now who are saying, I don't think you should. I don't think you should bother. Because if you go to university, you're going to run up debts of something like £35,000 to £45,000. Whether we pay that back or not is an issue, but it certainly is money that you will owe. And then, of course, you'll have to continually fund them because certainly in my case, with one of my kids who's going to university, the loan that they get just barely covers the cost that it is for actually their accommodation. So they haven't got any extra money at all. So yeah, they have to get a job, but that's harder and harder to do because, of course, this government have made it impossible for young people to get sort of, low-paid jobs, particularly in hospitality, because the hospitality business is on its knees and they're not able to offer people any jobs. So it's a vicious circle, which ends up costing ordinary families an awful lot of money. So take my advice. If one of your kids says, actually, I'm thinking I'd rather go and get a job, I'd rather go and, start my career somewhere, learn to be an apprentice, learn to be a plasterer, learn to be a painter, learn to be a mechanic, learn to be almost anything, rather than going to university, I would say that is a much more financially sound thing to do right now, because otherwise you're going to end up as one of these hundreds of thousands of graduates claiming benefits because they can't actually get a job despite the fact that they've got a degree. Extraordinary stuff. One of the things that you might have noticed added into the studio today, over there, is it over there? Yeah, no, it's over there. The heron. There is now a heron in the studio supplied by our good friend, Mr. Donald Cameron MacLeod of Clan MacLeod, who will be popping into the studios actually this week. He's going to be making an appearance on Plank of the Week, and he'll tell us what the state of play is up in Scotland, particularly ahead of those local elections in the Scottish Parliament. And, of course, he'll be telling us about the state of hospitality up there as well. Meanwhile, let's have Heron of the Day, shall we? Now, we've had a couple sent in over the course of the last couple of days. One from Mick. He says there's a heron in there somewhere. That's the one on the right. And if you look really, really, really closely, you can see it to the right of that first tree. It's kind of hanging about stealthily in the background. And Sean sent this in. A good luck heron in the Maldives. We nicknamed her Henrietta. We've been asking for a nickname for the heron behind us, actually. And did we go with Heron Mirren in the end? We're supposed to be having a poll done on it, but I'm not sure there's actually a proper poll, so it might just have to be a show of hands. John says, Mike, just go anyway. I don't know where you want me to go. Oh, you mean to the woods? Well, the thing is, yeah, you can go to the woods anyway, and you can park the car, but they've got number plate recognition. So if you don't pay, you'll get a fine. Heronce, pronounced like Beyonce, says Ross. That's quite good. Quite like that. I did not miss the news. It's awful. Sorry, says Penny for your thoughts. Lord Viking says, why don't we rename it Ziggy's Wood? Winnie the Pooh says, it looks like a swan, not a heron. Have you ever seen a blue swan? I mean, that's mad. It doesn't look anything like a swan. Herons have got long necks, and they are sometimes blue. Have they put barking meters up at the Woodlands, says Neil. Yeah, very good. Nice. Uni degrees are wasted, says Jan. Not just the huge cost of them, but the fact that the degree itself has been massively dumbed down. It's all a scam. Meanwhile, many young people are crying out for a classical degree. Well, that's true. I think the problem is that too many people are going to university. Universities all become very much businesses. They're no longer seats of learning. They're no longer places where you go and actually have interesting conversations with like-minded people and also with people you don't agree with. Now, what you've got, and we're going to be talking to Ellie Hodges about this later in the week, you've got a sort of mono culture in most universities where lefties run everything. And if you've got anything like a view which they don't agree with, they are likely to actually victimise you, if not persecute you, if not threaten you. And that's no good for anyone. There was a nice little message there that I was going to do. Definitely, Mike, says Francis. My partner and I went to university, but we are advising our son not to go. He is thinking of becoming a mechanic. Good idea. Barry says, a heron sits by my neighbour's pond most of the day waiting for his opportunity. Yeah, they're very good at fishing, aren't they? Hey, Mike, in sunny, hot Melbourne, watching the Sinner match. Catherine J, yeah, thank you. That'll be the Sinner match at the Australian Open, which is going on at the moment, the tennis, the first big sort of Grand Slam of the year. Always good. Starker has decided to back China as a new world power over the US, says Sue, with a sort of sick-making emoji. Yeah, Starmer, I mean, it's hard to imagine this man and his brain. It's hard to imagine what he's thinking. We played you earlier a rap song that he's put out. We can't play you the rap song, but he's put out this ridiculous video. Should we have another look at it? In which he put it out, by the way, put it out on TikTok. And the video is supposed to be showing him in a kind of trendy, clever light. It's got things of him, it's got images of him like hugging Vladimir Zelensky. It's got images of him walking around with troops, looking like for all the world that you can, in fact, be Mr. Cool and still be, a Labour leader. He's talking to soldiers. He's hanging out helicopters. Look at this. He's hugging Zelensky. He's coming out of a helicopter with headphones on, right? He's walking through a submarine. He's looking through binoculars. He's with people on an aircraft carrier. But the weird thing is that he's done it to this rap track, right? I did a bit of rapping earlier. I'm not sure I'll do it again because it was so good the first time. I might screw it up. But, who does he think he is? Do you think he's actually somebody that young people look up to? Because he's not. All you've got to do is go onto TikTok and see what the remarks are, and you can see very clearly that there is nobody who thinks anything other than this is the biggest wally I've ever seen in my life. Pheasant Plucker says, I have a BA in education and I'm a plumber. True, all degrees can be blagged on the internet. Well, I don't know about that, but what I can tell you is that if you've got a kid who is thinking about not going to university, I think you should very much encourage them to do just that. And go and find themselves a proper job that pays. Mike, there are many degree courses being peddled by universities just to generate fees to pay exorbitant salaries, says Stitcher. Well, this is another legacy of Tony Blair. One of the things that Tony Blair did was to ensure that the education business became basically a money-making enterprise. This is why they suffered so much when suddenly the Tories latterly, and now Labour to some extent, have clamped down on the number of people coming here to do courses from abroad, because one of the biggest sources of immigration and one of the reasons immigration numbers went absolutely sky high through the roof was because people were applying to come here from places like India, from places like Bangladesh, from Nigeria. They were coming here to do business courses supposedly, and they were bringing like 6 members of their family with them. And so suddenly you'd go from a net migration figure of 200,000 to a net migration figure of 800,000. And loads of people came here, of course, on student visas, and then overstayed the visa, and then applied for asylum, and they're still here. And that is part of the problem. We'll talk a bit about the state of play on immigration coming up very shortly, but I think we're waiting to speak to Frank Farady, who's not quite here with us yet, but we'll try and get him on. Mike, you haven't had a play with the noise board yet. Did you not set it up for a new week? No crazy laughter. Well, actually, we should have some crazy laughter. I'm not sure how I change it, because we did. How do I do that, Pooch?
Top 2.
Hey?
The top 2 buttons.
The top 2. Oh, yeah. There we go. The top 2 buttons. There it is. And then actually some clapping as well. Yeah, we should do more on that, shouldn't we? Because I'd completely forgotten. The trouble is, we've got so much new stuff coming. I brought a new plant in actually today, which is still in the back of the car. But we'll see if we can add it in to the mix, because I couldn't bring it in this morning because I had too much other stuff to carry. We've got a note here from Edward Hughes as well. There we are. There we go.
Good morning, Mike. Am I really not allowed to call myself Ed the News Hughes? You see, the thing is, it was Edwina's idea, and I'd hate to tell her I can't use it, especially after that Costa del Sol business and her going to the mother-in-law. The mother-in-law is a Ferrari listener, by the way. Cheers. Ooh.
The mother-in-law is a Ferrari listener. Well, you mean Nick Ferrari?
Yeah.
Well, we can't have that. You know, you've got to change that. I mean, Nick's a mate of mine and all that, but, you know, we should be listening to this show. Hieronymus the Blue, says John. How about that? Happy birthday to Ziggy, says Lynn. How about this? It's probably just me, but don't enjoy football as much as I used to, says Paul. Yeah, okay. Lots of you wishing happy birthday to Ziggy. It's actually Wednesday is Ziggy's birthday, so we'll be celebrating it properly. The government's gone rogue, says be careful. Eddie Izzard, that's the name I was thinking of, yeah. I was going to ask that question. If there is an all-women shortlist, does that mean Eddie Izzard is going to be involved? Because George Galloway was meant to be running. I'm not sure if he's actually going to go and do that now that... Andy Burnham has said that he's not running. And we, of course, wait to find out whether or not we see Zia Yusuf running for Reform. A lot of people think that basically Reform are going to win this seat, and they may now decide that they don't need to put Zia Yusuf in if, in fact, it means that... you know, they can win with somebody slightly less well known. Here's one from Power Crush who says, do a technical apprenticeship. I got my engineering degree paid for whilst working. No student debt, loads of experience when I got it aged 23. Now I'm a well-paid engineering consultant. Interesting. Wilhelmina Graham, no relation as far as I know, send me this. Mike, observation, please declutter the background. It's distracting. Possibly combine and have a Union Jack clock. What is distracting about the background here? I've got a Union Jack, I've got the Mike Graham Show neon sign, I've got a couple of plants, I've got a lamp, I've got a clock, I've got a live thing, I've got a heron. Oh, there's Pooch. He's getting something out of the... what are you getting? He's getting a beer out. A beer out of the wine fridge. We had a bit of an incident actually in the wine fridge over the weekend because, as you know, and we're going to do this every Saturday night. By the way, it was really successful again this Saturday. So many of you watched it. The wine tasting with our good friend Chris Walkie, Mr. Fizz, as I call him, or the King of Fizz even, and he brought in a load of really interesting sparkling wines, including one from Japan. Believe it or not. And he talked us through every single one. We had some brie, we had some pork pie, which apparently is one of the things you should eat with sparkling wine because it brings out the flavour, which is lovely. But the thing is, obviously, we don't get completely and utter bladdered because you can't, you know, because apart from everything else, you've got the rest of the day to get on with. And so we opened, I think, 6 bottles overall. I took a couple down with me to Sussex, which were open, but had stoppers in. Pooch took a couple home as well, but we left a couple here in the fridge and basically put the corks back in order to lay them flat because it's one of those wine fridges where the thing lays flat. And Pooch was doing some stuff around the show studio on Friday afterwards and was sitting over on the sofa and apparently this almighty explosion, you know, just completely... and the cork came flying out of the top of one of these bottles and burst the door open and then sort of spurted all this stuff all over the floor, which could only be over the rug. So he had to get up and fix it all. So once again, Pooch left holding the baby. Absolutely shocking state of affairs. But, you know, so be very careful. If you do open these things, the best thing to do is to finish them. At the end of the day, I mean, I'm not saying we're going to do that now, but be very careful what you put the cork, how you put the cork back in, because I had the same. I put them in the car, and one of the corks stayed in, but the other one just blew as I was driving down to Sussex. I didn't even hear it, to be honest. But when I got down there was no sign of the cork. Anyway, all I can say is just be very careful. Vicky says this in terms of the heron. Got to be Heron Mirren. Maybe get another bird in to be called Richard the Bird. I think Heron Mirren is kind of the winner, isn't it, today? It seems to me that is kind of where we are. We spend more time talking about what's going on in Russia and China and so on when our country is on its knees. That shows why we've got the politicians that we've got, says John. Pub of the week, is it coming, says Lord Viking. Well, we haven't quite managed to get that done. But we will try. Like I say, every single week we do something else. Today, the big news is that not only have we got a heron in the studio, but we're running the show now until 9:30 every single weekday. So we've already expanded it. We're only in week 4, let's not forget, but we've already expanded from 2 hours to 2.5 hours. And today, Lucy Connolly is our top guest. Which is really something I'm looking forward to talking to her about, because we'll get her view on all sorts of stories, including, of course, the story that there are thousands and thousands of convicted paedophiles who have not gone to jail, who have not been sent to jail because they have been allowed to basically continue to roam around the streets, even though they've been found guilty of being in possession of ghastly, hideous, horrible images. So we'll get into that because I'm sure she'll have something to say about that, amongst many other things as well. Right now, I'm delighted to say I think we've managed to find Frank Furedi, who is, of course, a man who knows a thing or two about further education and the student body. Frank, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the new Mike Graham Show.
Nice to talk to you, and congratulations on your new show.
Frank, thank you very much indeed. I mean, let's kick off with the state of play in higher education, in universities. The story this morning on the front page of the Telegraph that something like 700,000 people are now with a degree, in receipt of a degree, but are currently now claiming benefits because they're jobless and they can't find a job, which has got to be worrying, isn't it?
Well, you know, these days universities rarely prepare you for life afterwards, and a lot of the courses, a lot of the degrees are pretty much Mickey Mouse courses. They're not really training you either intellectually or practically. So I'm not particularly surprised that so many young people find it difficult to get a job. In any case, the job market is getting very tight, and employers are looking for people who have real skills rather than just simply show up and expect to be hired.
Right, and is that the fault, do you think, of the system of the state of the universities, many of which are now simply kind of money-making factories, aren't they?
I think universities have become industrialized. So basically, their job is to get as many bums on the seat as possible.
Yeah.
And as you know, you probably sort of seen a lot of reports. There are far too many people in university. A lot of people who really shouldn't be there, and many of them actually don't want to be there. Feel the necessity of getting that paper degree, and it is just a paper degree. It's barely worth the paper it's written on, but yet they're all, you know, sort of herded into the university sector, and it makes it very difficult because those people who should be in university are then overwhelmed and flooded by people who are bored out of their mind and wish they were somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly right. Speaking of wishing you were somewhere else, I see you've been writing about the Greenland situation recently. Saying that the conflict over Greenland could become the most pointless war of the modern era. It's been a strange couple of weeks, hasn't it, in international politics? You know, lots of people getting their knickers in a twist about Donald Trump and what he was up to there, then kind of being surprised that it turned out he didn't actually want to invade the place after all. What did you make of all of that?
I think a lot of the developments in international relations are performative. That means that a lot of leaders who, you know, haven't got very much to do at home, or who want to distract the public from the problems back in the nation they live in, like to, in a sense, play act in the international stage. And I don't know if you noticed, but our prime minister is constantly going to meetings in Europe, is constantly having photo opportunities with all kinds of people. And it's almost as if international relations has become a performance. And that's what happened last week in Davos, where everybody showed up, everybody expressed very strong views about things that don't really matter. Whereas in fact, it was clear all along that America wasn't going to invade Greenland. That was never on the card.
Right.
It's clear all along that more or less whatever Trump wanted, he could get just simply because he runs NATO, he runs the Western Alliance, and by hook or crook, he can pretty much get a deal for America. And I think the whole thing became a bit of a displacement activity that allowed a lot of people to have strong views on a subject they knew very little about.
Right. I mean, the good news, I suppose, that might be one of the things that comes out of it is nothing to do with Arctic security, but everything to do with the Chagos Islands possibly now not being given away for a huge amount of money to Mauritius, aka China.
But that was a very good, unexpected result. I was very pleased by that because I could never understand the stupidity that led the government to basically trade off Chagos Islands for nothing and plus pay millions and billions of pounds for the pleasure of handing over a very valuable military asset. So that's the best news I think that happened the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Do you think that is dead in the water now? I mean, it seems to me that Starmer hasn't really got anywhere to go with it because clearly he's got it completely wrong and it makes no sense.
it makes no sense, but that hasn't really stopped the Labour government from getting on with things. So they're quite often kind of dig themselves into a corner, and it remains to be seen. But I'm reasonably optimistic that the deal will fall through, and that's a very important win for our security, in fact, for the security of the Western world. Plus, you're going to save a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly right. And of course, Starmer's off to China later on this week, we understand. Nobody knows really why he's going there, apart from the fact that he wants to cozy up to them. They've just made somebody disappear, according to the front page of the Times this morning. Their most senior general has been, in their words, purged after accusations that he leaked information about the nuclear weapons program to the United States. The removal of Zhang Zhuzha hands President Xi control of military affairs, giving him power over all aspects of the state, to an extent unparalleled since Chairman Mao. What do you think the chances are that Keir Starmer asks him about the human rights situation in China?
Well, he might whisper it, and he might whisper it to some of the Western press that I had exchanged some views on it. But actually, he's going there as a supplicant. He's basically trying to exact certain economic concessions, not realizing that at the moment, China is spreading its wings all over Europe. It's doing incredibly well in terms of buying up different countries' infrastructure. It's buying up schools, even private education has become a target for the Chinese government, and they're buying up a lot of private schools, a lot of boarding schools, and bringing their students into this country. So that what's really happening is you're having a kind of silent invasion that people are really not aware of. They imagine that this is just merely an economic relationship that is being forged, not understanding that these kinds of economic relations have got very important military and political implications, because if another country owns your infrastructure, your source of water, electricity, your windmills, that creates a lot of problems down the line if ever there's any kind of conflict between Britain and China.
Right, indeed. Let's talk about the other big story, I suppose, on the horizon this morning, and it's about Shabana Mahmood's attempt at reorganising the police. I mean, the police in this country have become a bit of a laughingstock, I think, over the course of the last several years, not least because the Tories were pretty useless at reorganising them as well. What do you make of this idea that we're going to have a sort of British version of the FBI, which is what she claims she wants to set up?
I think it's often the case that governments like to reorganize things. They believe that if you make something smaller or bigger, or you have a new unit being set up, that's going to solve the problem. But what I really worry about is that the ethos of policing is what's the obstacle to effective security in this country. And the ethos of policing is one that's really lowered its standards. It doesn't expect that much from its police. It's not really a robust, community-friendly policing. We have a lot of unnecessary laws that the police need to enforce, and very often, police spend so much of their resources on pointless issues like non-hate crime and monitoring the social media, that they become distracted from dealing with burglars and muggers and people that are genuinely causing concern to citizens. So I think the key thing here is to change the ethos of policing. And I think possibly there is an argument for having a specialist unit that deals with the new kinds of threats that Britain is facing, which the police at the moment are not in a good position to deal with. But that's got to come on top of the change in the ethos, the values that we expect public servants, particularly the police, to enforce.
Well, I think so, because, I mean, one of the biggest problems that we've got now is the sort of matters arising from immigration, whether it's a pro-Palestinian rally, whether it's the protest that took place at Crowborough that we're going to talk to Howard Cox about in a minute at the weekend over migrant hotels and migrant encampments being set up all over the place. Also, we saw in Manchester and London this weekend people fighting on the streets over something foreign, Syrians fighting Kurds on the streets of Manchester and in the streets of London because of some perceived slight that's going on, some dispute that's going on in their own countries.
I think that is a big problem. The fact of the matter is that a lot of the migrants that have come in, even if they come here with the best of intentions, are bringing in their own problems from their own world. And when you bring in the problems of the Middle East and other parts of the world into Britain, it's always a recipe for conflict and for chaos, because in a sense, it kind of has a strange combustible mixture that we here in Britain find very difficult to handle. And what we're seeing at the moment is that policing becomes very, very complicated. Matters are made even more complicated by the fact that very often the local police feel that their job is really much more to do with protecting the people that have just entered Britain yesterday than with citizens in the local community. And they often show very little empathy towards people who are concerned about the fact that they wake up one morning and they realize that they got 20, 30 young men from a nameless country from the other part of the world living next door to them.
Yeah, and that is a massive problem. Frank Furedi, brilliant to have you back. Great to talk to you. We'll we'll be talking to you again very soon. Author, commentator, sociologist, democratic populist, he calls himself, from the MCC Brussels. He's a director there. Frank Furedi, thank you very much indeed. We'll be talking about Crowborough coming up in a moment. Just before we do the news, let's play a little clip, shall we, from yesterday. We've got several of them. This is Jade, who's one of the stewards from the Crowborough protest. Here, have a look at this.
It's huge. This is our 13th week now. It's always been very, very peaceful. Everyone's listening, everyone's here for the same thing. And it just goes to show how strong we all feel about this movement. It should be happening.
And again, sort of notably, basically everybody here is local, basically the surrounding area.
Yeah.
A few people over here from other protests have come to show solidarity.
Yes.
Of course, I'm not like myself, but this is a turnout of local people.
It is indeed. And you know, we're all doing this for the same thing. We don't think this is right. This is such a small town, and we need to put a stop to it. We haven't been informed about the movement at all. From day dot, we haven't been told anything. They got shipped in the night when we all wasn't expecting it, and it's just a joke. So we're all here together to fight.
Yes, and we'll be talking to Howard Cox, who was down there yesterday as well. He's coming up very, very shortly. Lots and lots of you getting some great names coming in for Herons. We've got another couple of begging letters, or begging notes, shall we say, to call it Richard the Bird. Yeah, absolutely. What about Spanner of the Week, says Limpet Head. Yeah, well, probably be Keir Starmer every week, wouldn't it? How about this one from Lamb Chop, Francois Mitterrand. Mitterrand, oh, sorry. Michael Crane says Swiss Tony, yeah, not bad. Emmanuel Macron, I think we've had that one before. Heron Doors, as in her indoors, says Ben, not bad. We've got so many names coming in. Herony McHeron Face. I don't like those, you know. I'm not keen on those. But I don't know. Maybe Pooch will have to make the decision, because I'm not sure I can. Heron 17, that's good. Like that one. Gil Scott I quite liked as well, but it's a bit obscure, I suppose, for those of you who don't know much about the music game. But let's get some news now, because it is time, of course, for Edward Hughes, who's back from his holes, and here he is.
Good morning. Here's the news for today, Monday, 26th of January. I'm Edward Hughes. Labour is facing internal turmoil after Sir Keir Starmer's team blocked Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham from standing in a key by-election, leaving Burnham disappointed, and critics calling it a stitch-up that could fuel leadership tensions. The Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood is pushing for tougher policing reforms, including more street patrols, faster 999 responses, and scrapping non-crime hate incidents to free up officers. The NHS is rolling out an improved, more accurate bowel cancer screening test in England, which experts say could save hundreds of lives by catching cases earlier. Thousands of children are enduring catastrophic waits over a year for vital community NHS care, with 250,000 waiting youngsters affected. Police in England and Wales will face new strict mandatory emergency response time targets to improve performance. The UK is joining 9 other nations in a major North Sea project to build a 100 gigawatts offshore wind power grid, boosting clean energy capacity. And cleanup continues after a devastating storm battered parts of southwest England, damaging seawalls, piers and homes in Devon and Cornwall. That's the main UK picture this morning. Political drama, health service moves and weather recovery dominating. That's your news, latest Tigers.
Thanks very much indeed, Edward Hughes, with the news there. It's 8:37. We're here, of course, not only till 9 o'clock today, but we're here as of now for the next 2.5 hours every single day from 7 till 9:30. Our special guest coming up after 9 o'clock today is Lucy Connolly. We'll get her view on the state of play right now in this country, the dreadful situation regarding her being locked up for a tweet, and also the fact that more than 5,000 paedophiles, as it turns out, I think it might even be more than that, have not been put in jail, not been put in prison, despite the fact that they've been convicted of vile crimes, including the possession of paedophile images. Absolutely extraordinary. 13,000 pedos dodged prison, it says, like Hugh Edwards, funnily enough. She went to prison for a tweet. Something wrong with the justice system there. Right, coming up, lots of you have got things to say about the heron. Donald says he wants to choose the winner of the heron name. Well, we'll see about that. Just because he supplied the one that's sort of over my shoulder here, which is sitting there, which some of you say looks more like a swan than a heron. It's a beautiful thing. It's a thing of great beauty. There's many things now coming into the studio that we didn't have before. Nobody said anything about my new mug, by the way, which I thought some of you might have commented on. But I'll tell you what we're going to do now. Howard Cox is here. He was down at the demo yesterday in Crowborough, along with 5,000 other people. Howard, now a member of Advance UK. Howard, very good morning to you.
Good morning. It's been far too long, Michael.
It has. Well, listen, we've been a bit busy setting up a new show. I'm delighted to say that we've got one now, and this is week 4. It's been a real roller coaster. We started with nothing, and we're getting loads and loads of people watching every single day. We've expanded the show today by an extra half an hour, so we're very happy about that. Let me just play out a quick clip of you yesterday when you were out in the cold, because it wasn't nice. It was a bit dank and nasty. But as I said, 5,000 people turned up. Here's Howard Cox reporting in.
Well, here I am at the Crowborough Says No event Sunday. It's a fantastic turnout. You can see there's still talking speeches after spoken at it. And I estimate something like 3,000 to 4,000 people in here today. It's now coming to an end, but the overriding aspect that's come across to me is how people are genuinely scared of what's happening to them here with the influx of these criminal invaders. Been sanctioned and supported by this government. So I'm proud to be here speaking, and I'm proud to be supporting Crowborough Says No.
It was quite a turnout, Howard. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I underestimated it when I just said there 3,000 to 4,000. It's more like 5,000 to 6,000. But yeah, it was an amazing event. I was invited to speak, and I was very honoured and proud to do so. I actually got married in Crowborough. I played golf in Crowborough. I lived in Crowborough for a long time, so it's close to my heart, the area. But that's not the point. What of those 5,000 or 6,000, I must have met people who came from Wales, Scotland, north of England, South Coast, Brighton, you name it. There's loads of people there concerned about the safety of their children. I mean, I spoke to a lot of people, Crowborough residents, who's generally, I mean this, generally are very scared. And a lot of parents there saying they're not going to let their children out and go to school on their own. They're going to be I'll tell you who's going to benefit out of this is the taxi cabs who are going to be delivering kids everywhere. They are scared, Mike. It brought it home to me just how sad this is.
Right. Well, when you know about Crowborough as you do, maybe you could explain to us one of the reasons why people are scared. I think it's because of the proximity of this camp in particular to the community, right? Because it's not down the end of a lonely sort of road, is it? It's right in the middle of town.
Yeah, it's not quite in the middle of the town, but it's just off. It's off down a high street. It's the direct line from the site, and the site is totally unsecured. You know, they can wander around freely, and they're doing that already. The first 27 that were shipped in 2 or 3 nights ago at 3 o'clock in the morning. I understand there's more been shipped in. We're up to about 50, and I understand there's another 500 to come. But the place, they can wander freely in there. This is a sleepy sort of town. 20,000 actually live there. And yesterday there were 6,000 there in a town of 20,000. And it's easy for them to get into the centre of town, to wander around and go past colleges and schools, all those sorts of things. And apparently that's what's happening.
Well, that's the trouble, isn't it? Because, again, they're not contained within these places. Shabana Mahmood seems to think that putting people in disused army camps is the answer. Well, it would be if the disused army camps were in some place far, far away without really any communities around them. But the trouble is, one, we don't know who these people are. Two, the people who are sort of supposedly looking after them don't really know who they are. You know, they're claiming that they're coming from a particular country. They could not be. It's possible that they're lying. It's possible they've got criminal records that we don't know about. And all we do know is that every place where these people are put, the crime rate goes up.
Absolutely right. These are criminals. So they're here illegally, therefore, by definition, they're criminals. And to see our Home Secretary gleefully say, oh, we're reducing the number of them staying in hotels now and putting them into these camps. These camps, they've got their own GP, they've got their own dentist, they've got all sorts of things they're being looked after. And it's interesting, isn't it? As you know, I campaign for the motorists big time. I've been doing it for 15 years.
Yeah.
And I spoke to a Labour front bench, a very senior in the cabinet person 3 or 4 days ago. And as you know, I've managed to get fuel duty frozen for 15 years. And he said this, and it's very sobering thought. And I mentioned it in my speech yesterday, that he said, you've done a great job in keeping fuel duty frozen now, but I'm afraid we've got to put up the tax to pay for these immigrants coming in. You couldn't believe it.
I know. It's just extraordinary, isn't it? Well, I mean, the fact is as well that in Crowborough, an awful lot of the local residents are up in arms, but it's also quite a lot of the local councillors. But we've seen before in Epping that the government, the Home Office, doesn't pay any attention even to the local council, do they?
Well, that's right. Well, the campaign yesterday was Crowborough says no, but they weren't even asked a question to actually say, do you want these people here?
Right.
And this is the whole thing about this government. And as we know, we've seen Starmer yesterday run away from a democratic fight with Andy Burnham, etc. in terms of the leadership battle, what's going to happen. He just decides to shut things down and just shut any debate down. And it scares the living daylights of me what we've got to have for the next 2 to 3 years under this government. It's going to get worse and worse. And yesterday in Crowborough, bless them, all of those people there, I'm very proud of them. And it was peaceful. There was no right-wing thugs. There was no opposition either. I didn't see any lefties out there. It was mainly people who were caring about their children and the residents. They were worried sick about what's happening to their community. Genuinely worried about their safety, Mike.
Yeah, I think that is the problem. So I presume there's more of these demonstrations planned, but without really knowing what the result of those demonstrations is. I mean, will they just peter out at the end of the day?
Well, no, there's another one next Saturday coming up. The guy, Liam, who's become a good friend of mine and who actually arranged it to Crowborough, says no. And there's loads of other little minor campaigns all coming together to fight this. It's not going to peter out, Mike. I think it's going to get, with the help of people like you. The mainstream media aren't covering it as well as they should do.
Yeah, I was watching Alex Armstrong last night from GB News, who said that Sky and BBC didn't even bother covering it.
Well, it's interesting that I actually spoke to the BBC South East crew there, and I spoke must be for about 3 or 4 minutes to the cameraman and the female journalist, and I put what I'm saying to you now, and people were really cheering about behind me and everything, and they didn't bother to put it out there last night. I couldn't believe it.
Really?
BBC, ITV, and Sky, nowhere to be seen.
As if there's other news worth covering. I mean, there wasn't much else going on yesterday. I mean, for heaven's sake, you'd think that they would have wanted to. I mean, the newspapers today have got pictures and quite good coverage of it, which I'm pleased to see. But yeah, I mean, you might as well not bother with the BBC and Sky anymore. Super chat from Hamwacker, who says this protest is not just about safety. This is about sovereignty. We are being betrayed by our government, traitors, and being invaded. A lot of people feel like that. Let me play you while you're on, Howard. Your old favourite man, Sadiq Khan. He was talking over the weekend, the Fabian Society about how terrible the right wing is for sort of, stirring up hatred about immigration. Have a look.
My name is Sadiq Khan. I'm the Mayor of London and a proud Fabian. I'm here at the annual conference of the Fabian Society in the Guildhall, where I've delivered a speech saying that us progressives, us Fabians, should be talking up the benefits of immigration. I think as a country we've allowed the far right and others to frame this debate with hatred, hysteria and fearmongering being used. And I think we've got to, as progressives, talk up the benefits of lawful migration with the 3 principles of compassion, control and contribution.
There he is, climbing up a ladder to try and make himself look 5 foot tall. Strangely enough, he says legal immigration there. Well, why doesn't he ever condemn illegal immigration? And if he wants to talk about the benefits of legal immigration, of which we can all agree there are some, provided it's controlled, But illegal immigration is not a benefit to this country and it never will be.
Well, this is the point. And to see him do what he does there, and I guess he's speaking to is obviously these left-wing Fabian, which is all of the cabinet members of the Fabian Society. We know what they're all about.
Yeah.
And you know what my feelings about him. He's a pathological liar. He's a nasty piece of work. I would rate him, as a decent socialist politician if he would come and speak to events like I was at yesterday and put his head above the parapet and talk to people there and tell them the benefits of these illegal migrants coming into their community to rape and thieve and commit violence in their communities.
Yeah, you would think so. Well, listen, Howard, it's been great to see you, and we'll see you again, I'm sure, soon, when you're at the next demo, if not before that. Welcome back to the fight, as they say, and we'll see you very soon. Howard Cox there for Fairfield UK, also from Advance as well, on the Mike Graham Show. A good man, and a man who we've known for many, many years. Why do we fear inexperienced leaders, says Super Chat Bags, when experienced governments created most of today's problems? When does experience become the problem, not the solution? Well, that's a good question. You'd have to say one of the problems with many politicians these days is that their experience is only of being politicians. They actually don't have much experience about doing anything else. And so maybe inexperienced leaders in terms of politicians are good because they're maybe experienced in something else. It's not necessarily needed. And Reform have said this as well, that despite the fact that they've got a small number of MPs, 7 now, the Magnificent Seven they're calling them, all of the people in that group have got different levels of experience in different single ways. The people of places like Crowborough should take their kids out of school, says Elsbell, stop paying council tax. This will achieve more. They can't handle non-compliance and disrupts their plan if you stop the money. Well, I think there are a lot of people that have said this over time. That if you were to stop en masse paying income tax or stop en masse paying council tax, that it would make the politicians sit up and take notice. I'm not sure how they would react, and I'm not sure how you would do it. We'll be talking about Plank of the Day coming up a bit later on, the Forestry Commission, who for some reason have decided to put a parking fee on what used to be a free car park, where Ziggy, my dog, and many other dogs go for a walk. And the woods in question, by the way, are Battle Great Woods. We'll be talking about that some more coming up in the next hour. And don't forget, today, for the first time, we are going to be going into an extra half an hour on this show. We're going to run from 7 to 9:30 now, every single weekday morning. And we will bring you, of course, the greatest guest that we've got at the start of this week. Lucy Connolly is going to be talking to us about her life after prison, what she's doing now, what she's planning to do, how she feels about being on bail, whether or not they're ever going to call her back in. And also on the story today, that it seems like there's something like 13,000 paedophiles walking around not being sent to prison, despite the fact that they've been convicted of some ghastly, really horrible crimes, which they should be behind bars for. We'll bring you all of that coming up after this.
Don't you forget now to like and subscribe and all the socials out there, especially there's YouTube channel, flannel.
Yes, do like and subscribe to the channel, please. We've got loads of you watching, which is great. The number's going up every single day. And don't forget, we've got Plank of the Week that goes out on a Friday. We're also going to start putting together a few other things for you. Like every Saturday now, it's a drink-a-thon. Not necessarily possibly lame. It's MG on the Piste, otherwise known as Plonk of the Day. Where we invite in Chris Walkie, who brings some sparkling wine with him. I think we've got an idea already of what he's going to bring in this week. And we will be filming us drinking it, chatting about life in general. If you imagine, it's just a very, very low-key, chilled out sort of half an hour to enjoy. With a glass of bubbly or a glass of wine, one way or the other. It's every Saturday night that we're going to put that out on YouTube. Friday night, of course, it's time for Plank of the Week. That's still out there. You can see it if you wish. I suppose we could play a clip from that. Maybe we'll do that in the next half an hour. Coming up, as I say, after 9, it's Lucy Connolly. Right now, though, let's talk to former government advisor Claire Pearsall. Claire, very good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well indeed. Welcome back to the Mike Graham Show. Good to see you. There's only one sort of big story in town this morning, isn't it? It's all about lame duck Prime Minister Keir Starmer has hastened his own demise. I mean, he's managed to sort of kibosh himself even more than everybody thought he could.
I mean, it's been quite an abject lesson in how to not run your party over the weekend. And I think we all knew that Andy Burnham was going to be a thorn in Keir Starmer's side. We could see that from the conference of last year. But I think that this was always going to be lose-lose for Keir Starmer. He backed himself into a corner. If he had allowed the selection of Andy Burnham to go ahead for the Gordon and Denton by-election and he lost, therefore it would be Keir Starmer's fault. But also then if he won, you'd have Andy Burnham, King of the North, there waiting in the wings to take over the seat of Prime Minister. So either way, Keir Starmer looks like he's lost. He's got civil war starting off in the Labour Party, and this is entirely of his own making.
Yes, it really is. And I mean, I saw several bits of analysis yesterday, some saying that, better to take the short-term pain of blocking Andy Burnham and looking undemocratic than allowing him inside the tent. But what a lot of people have said since this all happened is that this isn't going away. And my initial reaction was Andy Burnham might be heaving a slight sigh of relief in the first instance, because if he had decided to resign as mayor and he had decided to run as an MP and then lost the by-election, which is possible, he would have been nowhere. But then I saw his tweets last night, which he put out quite late on, funnily enough, around about 6:30 after he's obviously thought about it. And the final tweet that he put out, I think, is very telling. He said, P.S. The fact that the media was informed of the NEC decision before I was tells you everything you need to know about the way the Labour Party is being run these days. You would think that over 30 years of service would count for something, but sadly not. I mean, that's the statement of a man who is bitter and upset by what Keir Starmer's done, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he said he would put his hat into the ring, and he has, and that was important for Andy Burnham as a person. That if that seat came up, he said he would apply for it, and he did. If he didn't, then he would have lost any credibility within the ranks of the Labour Party that support him. But all it's done is allowed him free rein to now criticise the Labour leadership from afar, whilst holding a really important job as Mayor of Greater Manchester, one that he's going to use that platform to just poke holes in everything Keir Starmer does. So he is looking quite happy from the sidelines. And I should imagine he is breathing a sigh of relief, because that is going to be one nasty by-election when it comes. There's going to be all sorts of tactics being used. I think parties are going to throw absolutely everything for it. And it'll be really interesting to see who the candidates are, to see what choice people have in Greater Manchester, who they can look at to lead them. And I don't think it's going to be quite the result that the Labour Party think they're going to get. Any kind of big majority, I think, is for the birds. And this is going to come down to be a really tight race. I think the Green Party will probably do quite well at it, but also Reform. You can't knock their chances. They're looking to take a really high-profile scalp, and they've got the momentum to be able to do it.
Right. And as far as the sort of date is concerned, obviously we've got the May elections coming up, but this by-election is going to be held sometime in the next, month or so?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it depends when the writ is actually moved. You have to do the formal piece in the House of Commons where the writ is formally moved, and that gives you the date. And I think you're looking at anywhere between the next 6 to 7 weeks that we'll see that. It'll be at a time that it is never going to be convenient for the party involved. And I think Keir Starmer will want to push it as far past the local election dates as he can, in the hope that people will forget it. But the timetable is going to be pretty clear. I should imagine we'll hear this week when that's going to be, because you can't leave people without representation, because that isn't democratic.
Well, I mean, there's a lot that's not democratic about this government, isn't it? I mean, first of all, amazingly, they've got people coming out and saying, the reason we don't want Andy to run is because it's going to cost too much money to organise a mayoral campaign and a mayoral election, which could cost £4 million. You've got Housing Secretary Steve Reed in the papers this morning saying they didn't want to have a huge inconvenience to 2 million voters. Well, what about the 4.5 million voters who are going to be inconvenienced by not being able to vote in the local elections?
Yeah, well, quite. I think they need to be able to sort of, just go quietly back into the corner. When you're talking about cancelling elections for people, there are an awful lot of people who are going to be really upset that they cannot have their democratic will to put in their councils, the people that they want to be able to support them and look after the taxpayers' money. But I mean, the Labour Party have got this always wrong, really. I mean, they've come out and said, they've got the cabinet coming out saying, he wasn't the right person and this is all about money and we're very sensible. But it isn't at all. It's about the Labour Party imploding. It is about people not respecting the leadership and the leadership not knowing what they're doing. So I think that all ways round, people in this country are being sold a really bad deal by this awful Labour government, and we need to get rid of them.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think there's a huge cheer has just gone out. In fact, I'm going to give you a cheer. Clapping, there we go. How about that? We haven't been breaking up with that. Because, quite frankly, there's nothing left. I mean, meanwhile, Keir Starmer's off to China to go and do some kind of ridiculous deal, taking Rachel Reeves with him. I wish they'd imprison him for a few years and just keep him there, and somebody else could take over and do a better job. But, you know, do you see the cabinet splitting up over this? I mean, what does it mean for Wes Streeting? What does it mean for Angela Rayner, who's in the background, who had also said that she was encouraging young Andy Burnham to run? Where does it go from here, do you think, internally?
Well, I think that the one person that did come out of it incredibly well was Wes Streeting. I mean, you showed a clip from the Fabian Society conference a little earlier, and he actually spoke at that and handled the matter very well. He said it was an internal party matter. It's not one for the cabinet. We shouldn't be commenting, leave this alone kind of thing. So he comes out of this really clean-handed. He's managed it very well. He's a really smooth operator when it comes to the media. So he is looking more and more like a leader in waiting, which should worry Keir Starmer much more. So for him to be off in China with Rachel Reeves, I mean, God only knows what they're going to sell off to the Chinese next, now that they've got the super embassy coming through. So I think that Wes is looking pretty good. I think Angela Rayner working hard in the background will always have the more left of the vote. But I don't see her coming back in a leadership role, because I think she has really blotted her copybook for a lot of people. They want somebody new that is unblemished by this kind of leadership. So I think Wes is in a pretty good position. A couple of others looking quite strong, but you'll always get the toadies coming out saying that Keir Starmer was right. Doesn't matter what he says, they'll always be out there.
Yeah. Do you think he lasts beyond the May elections then, or what's your sort of thinking on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably the summer will see him off. I think these are going to be poor elections. This is going to be one of the nails in the coffin, but it'll be something. There'll be an event that we don't yet know about. And I think the summertime is a particular danger for Keir Starmer. You give MPs time on their hands out in their constituencies, and that's when the plots will start.
Yeah, I mean, they talk about civil war in the papers this morning. Starmer is now Labour's Joe Biden, says Dan Hodges in the Mail. And what about this picture of him with his mother? What's all that about? You know, why is he suddenly wheeling out his old mum, who I don't think I've ever seen before?
Well, I think it's one of those things you do to try and make out that you're a normal person. You try and bring out, you know, somebody that you can't criticise, an older lady in a photograph with you, just tries to bring out the sympathy vote. I mean, I think next week it'll be how many more pets can he rescue? Can he be seen with a rescue cat or a dog or indeed a heron? Who knows? I think it's one of those I'm a normal bloke type photos, which everybody can see through.
But that's the other thing, right? Because in the middle of all of this, he is Mayor of Manchester, and, you know, he was being touted as a sort of Jesus Christ figure over the weekend. People saying I heard Patrick Maguire from the Sunday Times talking about how he has sort of Kim Jong-un levels of loyalty up in Manchester, and that every single ward that voted for him or voted in the mayoral election voted him in, and he doesn't have any kind of I don't know, weaknesses whatsoever in that local neighbourhood. However, there's plenty of people that I know who live in Manchester who say, actually, over the weekend, for example, there was a terrible incident on the Curry Mile. I don't know if we could watch that, where there was fighting going on between two groups of immigrants, Syrians and Kurds, smashing up cars and stabbing each other over some dispute that was something to do with Syria. Similarly, there was somebody, I think, shot in Manchester's gay village. You know, Manchester is not exactly crime-free. It's not exactly, you know, one of the greatest cities in Britain in terms of the standards of living. Let's have a look. I think we've got the video on the Syrians. I mean, it's hard to believe that's a British city. I mean, there was a similar sort of fight going on in London, I think, yesterday, not quite with the numbers that we saw there in Manchester. But, you know, the mayor of Manchester should be doing something about that, no?
Yeah, absolutely. And the problem is when you set yourself up as the messiah of the North, which is what we're trying to be sold, then you have to absolutely make sure that there is nothing wrong in the area that you represent. And I think you can quite clearly see that there are massive problems in Manchester. Not everybody is happy with Andy Burnham, and you need to be able to sort your own stuff out first. Get your patch in order before you think you can run the country. And I think people are actually much more inclined to vote for somebody that they can see that there are some flaws. If he sort of held his hands up and said, you know, life isn't perfect, I need to do a lot more work, people would look at him a little differently. But to set yourself up as some kind of great white god of the North only leads to one thing: he is going to fall. He is not the messiah.
Right.
He's a very average mayor.
Well, that's the thing. And he wasn't a brilliant MP. When people sort of have, they say recollections may differ, don't they? But again, people get painted as, oh, he's going to be brilliant. He's going to come into Westminster like some kind of knight in shining armour. He's going to sweep everything away in front of him, and he's going to create a new Labour government, which is going to be brilliant. Well, I'm sorry, I don't see that.
No, and that's always the problem, isn't it? People will set people up as some kind of demigod with rose-tinted spectacles. It was all better in the past. It's that kind of attitude. And he wasn't that great. I remember him being around the House of Commons. He really didn't have much about him. He wasn't particularly friendly. And a lot of Labour MPs are that I come across, but he seemed to be more of the one that's sort of plotting in a corner. He wasn't really chatty and open. And I think that people see through that. And of course, a lot of people voting now will not have known Andy Burnham when he was in the House of Commons. A lot of younger people, this will be the first time that they've ever really come across him. Right. So they need to be a little bit careful when they make these choices. And he isn't the greatest politician that I think I've seen. And everybody was saying the same about Sadiq Khan. What a great job he was going to do as London mayor. And I think that we can all see the results of that.
Yeah, absolutely right. Claire, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Claire Purcell there telling us her take on the Andy Burnham situation. I mean, I think, again, it is that Monty Python clip, isn't it? He's not the messiah. He's just a very naughty boy. I mean, I don't remember Andy Burnham being particularly brilliant as an MP. And a lot of people, as I say, in Manchester don't remember him particularly well as their local MP. And they certainly don't think that he's doing a brilliant job as the mayor of Manchester. Because he isn't. Because he isn't the answer. He's frightening the hell out of Keir Starmer, as I say, but then that doesn't take much. And Keir Starmer now comes out of all of this looking completely and utterly finished. As I say, Dan Hodges, who used to tell me what a great leader Keir Starmer was going to be, has now got it in for him in a massive way, and every single week writes something even more deliberate and ruinous to Keir Starmer's reputation with every passing week, as I say. Coming up, we're going to be speaking, of course, to Lucy Connolly, who is here with us. There's some strange things going on the old live stream at the moment. I'm not quite sure what. It says this stream is in Discord. I don't know what that means. Somebody's spamming it, so I guess we'll have to try and get... there's all sorts of things going on. We're getting hacked every day. People attacking us from all sorts of angles. I wonder why. Could it be because we are the most successful breakfast show in the history of breakfast shows? We started 3 weeks ago. This is week 4. We've got more people watching than any other breakfast show put together. It's a fantastic thing. And we're very happy with you. You seem to be pretty happy with the show. We've got a Heron today. We've got Lucy Connolly. Today's the first of the new beginning because we're going to be doing a show now from 7 to 9:30 every day. So you get an extra half an hour of an after show. We've added that in for added value. We're going to be talking about the migrant march in Crowborough. We're going to be talking, of course, about the 13,000 paedophiles who seem to be walking around in Britain despite the fact that they've committed crimes against children, right? Lucy Connolly gets locked up for a tweet. We'll get her view on that. We'll get her view on how she's going as well and life after prison. And, of course, we'll bring you all the latest news as it breaks, as it goes on throughout the course of the next 20 minutes or so. Coming up right now, though, let's get some news headlines with Edward Hughes.
Good morning. Here's the news for today, Monday, 26th of January. I'm Edward Hughes. Labour is facing internal turmoil after Sir Keir Starmer's team blocked Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham from standing in a key by-election, leaving Burnham disappointed and critics calling it a stitch-up that could fuel leadership tensions. the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood is pushing for tougher policing reforms, including more street patrols, faster 999 responses, and scrapping non-crime hate incidents to free up officers. The NHS is rolling out an improved, more accurate bowel cancer screening test in England, which experts say could save hundreds of lives by catching cases earlier. Thousands of children are enduring catastrophic waits over a year for vital community NHS care, with a quarter of 300,000 waiting youngsters affected. Police in England and Wales will face new strict mandatory emergency response time targets to improve performance. The UK is joining 9 other nations in a major North Sea project to build a 100 gigawatts offshore wind power grid, boosting clean energy capacity. And cleanup continues after a devastating storm battered parts of southwest England, damaging seawalls, piers and homes in Devon and Cornwall. That's the main UK picture this morning. Political drama, health service moves and weather recovery dominating. That's your news, latest Tigers.
Edward Hughes with the news, a man that divides opinion, but always brings us up to date with everything that's going on. Let's talk now, though, to Lucy Connolly, the woman who was at the centre of so much over the last couple of years when we talked about free speech, when we talked about crimes, punishments, that sort of thing. Lucy, great to see you. Welcome to the Mike Graham Show. Thank you so much for joining us and taking some time out in the morning, looking lovely in the flowers behind you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Mike.
Yeah, good to see you. We've sort of been in the same places together, but we've never actually met. So welcome to the show. Lots of people very excited to see you here this morning. Tell us how you are, first of all. I mean, obviously, I'm a fan of your Twitter account, which hasn't been taken off you, which is nice to see. You know, you seem to be a woman who's recovered very well from your ordeal and what you went through.
Well, I don't know about recovered, Mike, but you know, life throws us curveballs sometimes, doesn't it? And we can either, you know, be bitter or better, can't we? And I will not let these people beat me and bring me down.
No. A lot of people ask me Sorry, go on.
So I've got too many, you know, positive things going on in my life for that.
Yeah, exactly right. A lot of people ask me questions and did ask me about this when we said you were coming on, because every now and again you see stories that, you know, Lucy Connolly could be recalled to jail because of something she said. Have you got a sort of set of conditions that you've been given in terms of how you're supposed to behave, what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do?
Yeah, I mean, I do have conditions on my licence. They don't actually relate to anything as such that I can and can't say. It's more based around not being able to attend protests, being around, you know, getting their permission when there's more than 50 people in any one place, and that kind of thing. Social media is not banned for me. You know, I am able to see, I am able to go on social media. So, you know, anyone that thinks I'm breaking my license conditions with my Twitter account will be wrong.
Right.
You know, but everyone knows everything, don't they, Mike? You know.
Oh, they do. I mean, we get lots of advice on how the studio should look, on, you know, which guests we should have on, you know, whether they're wearing the right clothes. You know, everybody's got advice for you. But that's interesting about the crowd scenario, though. So you're not allowed. So, for example, if you wanted to go to, say, the demonstration at Crowbury yesterday, you wouldn't be allowed to go.
No, well, I probably would, but I don't think they'd sign that off. I'd have to seek the probation's permission. So, for example, I've been to a Pink Ladies one that in London when it was outside Parliament, but I think what they wouldn't want me doing, and I can kind of see their point, is standing outside, you know, a hotel, protesting, that kind of thing. They haven't actually ever declined any of my requests. So anything that I've ever put in to, you know, to go to, they've always signed it off. They've never actually been, oh no, you can't go. Right.
And a few questions popping up there on the screen. How long do the conditions last for? Says Mrs. A. Is that the length of the original sentence or something?
It is. So it's March 2027, unfortunately.
Wow, that's a long way away, isn't it? Crikey.
It is a long way away. But then I guess, you know, we're nearly at the end of January now. It'll soon be March, then it'll only be a year. So that's the way I look at it. You have to kind of look at it like that. It is annoying, you know. I do feel that you know, the amount of times that I have to check into probation and the way that I'm managed under MAPA is excessive. I do think it is.
Right.
You know, paedophiles and rapists are getting less management than the likes of me.
Yeah.
But it is, you know,
I'm going to ask you about that in a minute. So what do you have to do physically? Do you have to report somewhere once a week or once a month or something like that?
Yeah, every week I have to go into probation. I mean, really, once a week by this point, it is quite a lot. People may be down to like fortnightly or monthly by now, but no, I'm still on weekly, 5 months down the line, which it's annoying. It is annoying, but you know, you just have to play the game and
right.
and do what they tell you, really.
And if you're able to tell me, I mean, what happens when you go to see the probation people? Do you have to sit waiting for a while? Do you go straight in to see someone? What do they ask you?
Yeah, generally they don't keep me waiting. Actually, they're quite good. And actually, there's a lovely lady that works there behind reception. This little Scottish lady, and she likes me. And they can be very often kicking off in probation. You know, you've got a lot of kind of like men, like, you know, young men, or you know, they'll very often be kicking off in there about how they've had to wait or they don't like something. So she'll take me off. Come through, Lucy. Come through. Come and sit in this room out of the way. Because I think she thinks that, you know, I might be a bit, I mean, I'm not, but I think she thinks they might be a bit intimidated by it all.
Right.
Well, this is the thing. They're all right.
But this is the thing, you know, the idea that you're this sort of, you know, some kind of master criminal, you know, is so ridiculous, isn't it? That you have this kind of thing that's going to follow you around. Hopefully not for the rest of your life, but I mean, it really is ridiculous what happens to you. And I know that you've spoken about this before, and you've said that you were sorry and all of that. But I mean, you can see from the messages that are coming up, people calling you a hero, people are saying it's ridiculous what happened to you. And I think, generally speaking, most like-minded people would say, you know, that you were badly treated.
And the thing is, Mike, how many times can one person apologise? I apologised at the time. I took the tweet down of my own accord without anyone telling me to, once I'd calmed down. I've always accepted that it was the wrong thing to say. I've always accepted it wasn't my finest moment. I've apologised till I'm blue in the face. I'm not apologising anymore.
No,
I did my time. You know, this is what people fail to understand. I did 12.4 months in prison and I'm now on probation for the next, you know, 12 point whatever. I've done my time. You know, I paid the price for what, you know, for some words that I wrote, higher a price than, you know, what people raping children and such like do. So I'm not apologising anymore. I've said I'm sorry. You know, I could give some people a kidney and it still wouldn't be enough. So I'm just getting on with my life now, and I'm hoping that I'm able to make some positive change with the voice that I now have found myself with.
Yes, and I think you have, because already, I mean, I've seen interviews that you've done before where you've talked about what life was like inside prison, and you've been quite vocal about how terrible it is for an awful lot of women in particular who are in prison for no good reason, really. And women seem to be disproportionately locked up for crimes which both you and I would probably agree are not, you know, dangerous crimes. No,
I mean, the population of women in prison is growing exponentially. And I think we do need to look at why is that number growing so high? Why are our prisons absolutely full to the rafters with both females and males? I think it's too easy to lock people up. I think that they go for the low-lying fruit sometimes, as opposed to what you and I might call a real criminal. Because it's easy pickings. And I do think there needs to be serious questions as to why the female prison population is rising so much.
Yes, exactly right. And you found an awful lot of sort of fellow sufferers, if you like, didn't you? A lot of women who really didn't need to be there and who probably didn't understand why they were there.
1,000,000%. You know, one of the first people I met was like living next door to me, if you like, was a lady. She was homeless. She did take drugs. She'd got no family. She'd grown up in care, and she was one of the you know, many people that are constantly in out. They get let out. They're back in again 3 weeks later. Now, you know, if you've never been to prison and you've never seen the system, you would just assume that she just never learnt a lesson. She's just, you know, not of good character, So not true. You know, this poor woman was in a situation where her life was better in prison than it was out on the streets. She got a bed, it was warm, she had 3 square meals a day, she didn't have to worry about where her next meal was coming from. And she's just on a vicious circle. She will never get out of that circle because there's no help for her. And how sad that somebody's life is better in prison than out of prison.
Right. And that is a problem, I think, in the sector as well, because a lot of male men, as you say, who have real struggles outside and who might be homeless at times, whatever, they feel as if the prison system protects them more. But I guess the problem for male prisons is that there's an awful lot more violence, isn't there, than there is, I suppose, in the female prisons.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I can't speak for. I've only had experience of the female side, and I think from what I've heard and what I know, they're two different worlds. There is a lot more violence over on the male side. I mean, Peterborough, where I did most of my sentence, is actually the only prison in the UK now with both a female and a male side. And very often we'd get locked down because all officers were needed over at male side because they were kicking off and having some kind of ruck. So then it would be like ladies behind your doors, and then all the officers would have to go go running over to male side to break up fights and such like. But again, I'm a massive believer of, and having spent time in the system, if you treat people like animals, they will behave like animals.
Yeah.
I don't think that, the people that say we're not hard enough on criminals, we're not hard enough on people in jail, you need to go into that system and you need to understand how most of these people have ended up in there in the first place.
Yeah.
And it isn't punishment that they need, it's help. And then, if you think that housing somebody in prison for a year costs the taxpayer £55,000 a year minimum, would it cost £55,000 for the government to house these people, to put them on drug rehabilitation programs, to find them work, to find them education? I don't think it would. It's just an easy option, isn't it? It's just an easy option to throw people in jail because then they're not your problem anymore.
Yeah, I think that's right. And obviously, a lot of people that I speak to who have worked in prisons, and particularly in male prisons, they say that over the course of the last several years, they've just denuded the force of prison guards so much that there's now fewer and fewer guards for more and more actual inmates, and so it's much more difficult to control the whole thing.
Definitely. And every time they mention that we're going to build new prisons and we're having X amount of new prison spaces, I just laugh and I say, and how are you staffing these prisons? You can't staff the ones you've got. I remember when I was at Drake Hall, which is in Staffordshire, and over a weekend, we were having officers come from Wandsworth in London, and they were paying these officers mega money and putting them up in hotels to come and cover prisons up north. There aren't enough prison staff in the system. It's not a job that everybody wants to do. I actually think it can be quite a nice job, actually. It's not as awful as you might think. But the fact is there aren't enough officers, so that means that there is no rehabilitation. People are locked down way more than they should be. People aren't getting the help that they should, because in fairness, they're just keeping the peace and making sure everyone's getting fed and watered, and that's all they have time to do a lot of the time.
Sure.
They have time constraints, they have budget constraints. I'm not suggesting that the prison system has it easy in the sense that they've got everything they need as well, because they don't have all the tools they need to rehabilitate people. They don't have all the tools they need to just make sure everybody gets enough exercise a day, that everyone's out of their cell enough a day. And like I said, treat people like animals, they're going to behave like animals.
Yeah, exactly right. The story this morning in the Sun that I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned that people that commit sex crimes don't get put in prison, not only for the length of time that you did, but sometimes even at all. And story today saying 13,000 paedophiles who hoarded child abuse images, just like Hugh Edwards and David Coote, have avoided jail in the past 5 years. Only 2,910 out of 15,867 child sex offenders convicted since 2020 were sent to prison, a lockup rate of 18%. And it says, going back to 2004, 52% of those people would have been locked up. So something's gone terribly wrong with the sentencing structure in this country, isn't it?
Definitely. Why, as a mother, would I rather my child saw hurty words on the internet, or would I rather there was some indecent image circulating the internet of them and on people's phones and etc.? Because I know hands down which one I'd choose. I don't know what's gone so horribly wrong in this country where we're so lenient on people that target children.
Yeah.
Why are children in our country just not priority? Why are they put? It just feels like they're put to the bottom of the pile all the time. It doesn't matter if, you know, some crazy person wants to go and stab them in a dance school. It doesn't matter if some, you know, somebody like Hugh Edwards who has the nation's trust before this happened. Somebody like him. It doesn't matter if he's got loads of indecent images on this, because it's only children. You know, they don't matter.
Right. I know, it's absolutely shocking. And I mean, it clearly shows that there's a different attitude. And I mean, I wanted to ask you about this as well. That, you know, people always say, who are not on your side, oh, well, she pleaded guilty. Well, yeah, but you pleaded guilty because you were told to plead guilty, because you were advised that that would help your case when you were basically stitched up by the CPS.
And it's just not that simple. I remember the very first time I spoke to the solicitor that was, he attended the magistrate's court on the Saturday morning. So obviously I'd been locked up since the Friday evening, and I'd been charged quite late Friday evening,
right,
and told I wasn't going to be remanded and I would appear in front of a magistrate's court. Now, I spoke to this solicitor that was part of the same firm that I used all the way through, and he was like, well, it was just a given that I was going to plead guilty. And I remember thinking at the time, really? And I said, you know, well, I'm willing to say that I wrote the tweet, of course I did, and that, you know, it wasn't the right thing to do and I was sorry, but I'm not, you know, it wasn't my intention to do any of the other stuff that they suggested I did.
Right.
But then I was sold this line of, well, we've had this, our client was also Tyler Kay. He happened to share your tweet. He did the same thing as you. He went down the route of a Newton's hearing and he lost all his credit and he just got 37 months. So if you want to do that, that's what's going to happen to you. You'll lose all your credit, you will get found guilty, and you are going to serve a hefty jail sentence. And I was thinking at the time, what, you know,
sounds mad, doesn't it?
It is mad. And then, of course, if it's made quite clear to you from the beginning, of which it was by the judge, you know, Judge Crane said to me at Northampton Crown Court, she wasn't even the one sentencing me. At this point, she'd got none of the mitigating circumstances or anything like that. She told me I will be serving a hefty, I think her words was a lengthy custodial sentence, but it's down to the judge in Birmingham as to how long that will be. They'd already made it quite clear that I was serving a custodial sentence and I wasn't getting out of jail anytime soon. So as a mother, what would you do? Would you go down the route of thinking to yourself, well, I'm going down whatever, so now it's damage limitations and I need to get back to my child as quick as I can?
Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking at the time. If I had my time again, would I change anything? I don't know, because I know that lots of people have, you know, well, if a few people have gone to trial and they've been found not guilty. You've got Jamie Michael, people like that, that walked. But if I hadn't, I would have got an even longer sentence. And how long would I have sat in remand for? There's a good chance that I would still be sat there now.
Yeah. And that's the trouble, because you're not an expert in the law. At that point, you've never been in that situation before. You're relying on people who are hopefully got your best interests at heart advising you. But my firm belief is that you were not being given advice by people who had your best interests at heart. You were being advised by what was then the sort of political machine being run from Downing Street, even though they deny it to this day. I've got no doubt that was entirely down to Keir Starmer and his kind of, you know, far-right thuggery stuff. And he said, we want to lock all these people up.
Oh, well, he said that, didn't he? He openly said that. Anybody, either online or in person, will be paying. We will remand you and you will be paying the price for this. He quite clearly said that. There's no debating that.
No.
Everything that happened to me both at the time of sentencing and court and throughout my whole prison sentence. You will never forgive me. You will never convince me even that it was not coming from above. The rules just weren't followed with me. Rottles, release on temporary license, the things that it just became a standing joke in prison. Everybody can have it but Lucy, that's how it became. That's how it felt. Like the rules were different for me. And I actually don't think that was the governors of the prison. I just think that they were being told from, the hierarchy above what they were allowed and not allowed to do with me.
Yeah, exactly right. And how is your daughter and how is the family now after all this?
Yeah, they're good. She's good. She's got school today. So
yeah. And life goes on, right?
It does, absolutely. And as I said before, like this was awful what happened to me and worse for my family, definitely. But we've been through worse. We lost our son, and that's the most horrific thing that any parent can go through. And if you can come out the other side of that, I think you can get through anything.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of people are asking a couple of questions before I let you go. Could you stand for Parliament now, or does your sentence make that impossible?
I don't know. There's mixed information about that. So I thought I couldn't because I got a sentence over 2 years.
Right.
But then a solicitor I know has been doing some digging, and he sent me some information the other day, and he seems to think that I can. So before I was, I really do need to find out where the law lies.
Yes.
Where the land lies with that one.
Because you have got ambitions in that direction, do you think?
I mean, I'm not sure about kind of MP level, but I would love to work. I mean, I am absolutely convinced, and I really hope that reform get in under the next government. I think if they don't, we're all screwed. And I'd really like to, work alongside them and help try and make a difference and, with the prison system and the judiciary and getting people the help that they need.
Sure.
And giving these women a voice.
An awful lot of love for you on this show. All of the audience comments are amazing. So go back and have a look at them if you want. But they're all very much in praise of you, calling you a hero, saying what a wonderful woman you are, and you always come across so well. Whenever I've seen you interviewed, and the same today. So thank you so much, Lucy, for taking the time to talk to us. And anything we can do, just let us know.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Great to see you, Lucy Connolly. What a woman. Imagine having to go through all of that with a young family. Her husband wasn't well. And yet she still is able to smile, and a lovely smile as well that she has there. Listen, that's been quite an extraordinary show, I think. First show of the week, the first one as well that runs 2.5 hours all the way to 9:30. Before we let you go, I've got to repeat plank of the day because it's very important. Check this out.
Hello, it's plank of the day time.
And the plank of the day today, which some of you might not know about, is the Forestry Commission. It's a government department which runs all of the forests in this country, including one particular forest, which is called Battle Great Wood. It's down in Sussex. It's where I like to take my dog Ziggy, and it's where he likes to go every single day. But unfortunately, something has happened, and I had to break the news to him like this yesterday. Ziggy, listen, I know it's a big week for you this week, because it's your birthday week. You're going to be 12, aren't you? And we were going to have a big party in the woods with all your friends, like we always do. But this year, I've got some bad news, Ziggy, because it looks as though they've decided to put a tax on the woods, and the nasty people in the government don't want you to have a good birthday. They don't want you to see your friends in the woods, because they've decided to start charging people to park at the woods. So they've now put a tax on the air in the woods. They've put a tax on dogs going to the woods. They've put a tax on you going to the woods. So we're going to have to find something else to do on your birthday. And I'm afraid it's the fault of the Forestry Commission, which is a government organisation who are trying to stop you from having fun on your 12th birthday. But don't worry, we're going to find something else nice to do. But we won't be able to go to your favourite woods anymore. I'm so sorry, Ziggy. Ziggy, possibly one of the most beautiful dogs that's ever lived, right? He wasn't happy when I told him the news because the Forestry Commission, right, which runs something called Forestry England, which is a kind of quango, full of people, by the way, getting paid bucket loads of money to do not very much, apart from looking after a few trees and supposedly doing the husbandry around all of the woods in this country, right? The Forestry Commission's annual report proves that they have so much money, and yet what they've done at Battle Great Wood, which has been a place where Ziggy has gone for all of his 12 years, since he was a puppy, for a walk every single day, they've decided that the car park should no longer be free. They've decided to put some bollards up. In fact, we might take some pictures and put those up as well. They've decided to put camera recognition on the car park. So if you drive into it now, it will recognise your number plate. And if you don't pay to park there, they will basically fine you £100. Unbelievable, right? What I also found out was staff costs have doubled in the Forestry Commission over the past 5 years. They used to be 26 million a year. They're now 56.4 million pounds a year. That's your money that they're spending. What on earth is going on? Also, their operating expenditure has gone up by threefold during the past 5 years. It used to be 47.2 million. It's now 151 million pounds of your money. In addition to that, after they get the money going into Forestry England, it goes into yet another charity, which is called the Woodland Trust. So who's getting this money? And why are they taxing dogs? Why are they taxing Labradors? And people with horses have been told, you can't bring your horse box there anymore. You're not allowed to walk your horse in the woods, which is designed for horses. It's absolutely staggering, absolutely shocking, absolutely disgraceful. Should we do a couple of quick super chats before the end? Looking great, Mike. Your live stream count is rocking, says what looks like Sheridan. The super chat has been great today. The comments have been fantastic today. We've had a few incidents with some spammers as well on the YouTube feed. There's obviously all manner of people trying to stop us from being successful. But don't worry. Apparently, if you join Forestry England, you can park for free at their woods. Yes, it costs £96 a year, but that's less than £2 a week, says Amanda. Yeah, but it was free. So why would you pay £2 a week for something that used to be free? And do you know what their excuse is for making the parking cost money? They say that there is a bin which people deposit the dog mess in and it costs them money to empty it. That's their excuse. I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. It's Ziggy's birthday this week and we are on the rampage. I kid you not. He's looking for some new woods to walk in where he doesn't have to pay to park. Quite frankly, it's a disgrace. A tax on Labradors? Whatever next. We'll be back, of course, with loads more tomorrow morning from 7 a.m. The Mike Graham Show will go from strength to strength. You'll have another 2.5-hour show tomorrow. And there'll be loads more stuff on the Substack as well. After shows, all manner of recipes, little videos from me as well. Have a fantastic day. And remember, no matter how much of it there is going on out there, and there's an awful lot of it, don't be a plank.
Remember, despite all of the others out there, it's always the others. Don't be a plank.